Welcome everyone here to day 3 of the PMCO UK Fall Split season 2021. Of course, my name is Highland Wolf and joined, of course, every single day alongside me, Professor Tarzan. A big little bit of a shout out to our sponsors as well, Nemo TV, who are the official media partners of the PUBG Mobile Pro League in 2021, and Xiaomi, where you too can grab yourself a super fast and lag-free PUBG Mobile experience on Xiaomi's powerful Redmi Note 10 5G. And we have had 2 days of competition so far, Tarzan, where actually it's been very mixed results. And now that we start to delve into these teams, they mix a little bit more. Group A and C playing today, we get to start to see what these teams really have to evolve and grow through this competition.
Yeah, definitely. We did a little bit of homework as well as casters. So we're thinking, is this a very strong day, right? So we look at those teams and find out where they are on that standings, right? But actually, 8 of these 16 teams are in those top 16, and the other 8 are in the bottom 16. So they kind of a bit of an equal lobby. Of course, they play very different games in the past 2 days. But let's look at a little bit of graphics to give us a little bit more, should I say format? A little bit of what they're playing for, right? So a context would be the word, I'd say. So we are playing for, of course, making it to the finals, but it's going to be a little bit harsh this time because only 14 teams can go to the finals because we already got 2 teams in there, being Gaijin Seraphim and Rescue, because they participate in that PMPL Europe West Season 1.
They're the lucky ones, right? They're the fortunate few who don't have to fight this gauntlet of, well, only 14 teams, of course, by the end of this week to go through and join them in that finals. But I think it's going to be a tough road because even when you get to that finals, of course, only the top 1 team can get into PMPL Season 2 later this year. And that's what all these teams are, of course, fighting for. However, I think that, to be fair, we have seen a lot of evolution through these teams. And I think particularly as we move on to these rules and whatnot, it has been a lot about, I think, the overall situation when it comes to kills versus, I think, for the most part, placement points. These teams still to find their consistency on this points distribution.
I actually think this is a very nice system still, and you've seen some very peculiar things. Like even in other regions, you've seen some teams with only, I don't know, 8 placement points and 24 kill points, something like that. But you also have those teams who play quite conservative, want to hold their positions, but we also find those picture perfect teams, right, with good placement, make use of those positions that they are controlling to also get those kill points.
And of course, those kill points, as we said, that's what these teams really have been going for. However, I think that actually, to be fair, there have been a couple of those teams, albeit outsiders compared to the rest, who have been consistent, have been able to get themselves those placement points. I mean, we look back to the first 2 games yesterday where Costi was able to drag, through to a second place for game 1 and game 2, which is what, of course, secured them, as we'll find out later, high up on that leaderboard placement. But as we also, I think, look to what the prize pool will be here, and actually the fact that it is no small amount of money that these teams are competing for. Of course, everyone is a winner when it comes to the full season.
I think it's a great amount of, how should I say, encouragement, as well as, to be fair, it can be a life-changing amount of money. If they know how to manage it, you can get some upgrade when it comes to your gear as well. So let's look at the prize pool now that we're talking about it. So $30,000 across all the regions as well. So in the UK, we have the same amount. So if you can make it to the top 16, you have a little bit of an extra amount for sure. And although only 14 teams will proceed to the finals, you still want to make sure that you are at least at 15-16 position, because that will still give you a bit of an extra amount of prize money.
Of course, it is, though, all the money going to rack up quite a lot when you do get to those top 3 positions. I mean, when you look towards those top 3, you start to jump up 800, then of course 1500 to that first place position, $4,000 for them, and of course that pivotal PMPL Season 2 spot to join alongside already Lack and Austria MVP and Eco Defense League, who are 2 out of our 3 UK representatives. We will see them later on in the yearly Worth of competition. However, I think we also really should mention that, yes, it's Group A and C. However, I think that these teams is quite interesting in the sense that they actually have a lot more to prove compared to the Group B and D we'll see tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's because of how there were a lot of teams in these 2 groups that we expected more, right? So they are also, for example, Conquer UK, TSC Legends, and Avoid, to name a few, right? They have those experience. Like they've got previous MVP players and etc. And they are not having those big games yet. But on the contrary, we've got Team Savage like really leading the charts almost, and with the great amount of point per average point per game. We didn't really expect that because they didn't do so well when we watched them in PMNC. We actually criticized them quite a bit, but let's see whether they can hold up in that position.
Of course, the schedule here as well for today's games is the exact same as always, but a little bit of a change as we said. Group A and C will be playing. Group B, D, gonna have to wait for them tomorrow to see all of their action, but is gonna be Erangel, Sanhok, Miramar, and Erangel who will be our games, our full maps tonight, as always. As we say, I always like to imagine it is that sandwich. I mean, I haven't got to say it in 2 days, and this is like my staple. This is like when you come home after a long day of work, you sit down, you play PUBG, and you want a bite to eat. Erangel, Sanhok, Miramar, Erangel, that's a sandwich I go for.
Yeah, I mean, like when we're looking at these maps as well, like jokes aside, we've got a lot of interesting analytical bits as well. When we talk about, groups A and C, obviously they played into the 2 different days in the past 2 days. So let's talk map after map. Let's start with Erangel. Like in day 1 for groups A and B, they had a quite equal playing path on Erangel, which is very different when we were talking about yesterday for groups C and D. They've got more of a Western playing path, which means that they can be a little bit more stealthy and mysterious when it comes to that western side of the map. So they give them a little bit more advantage when it comes to hiding the secrets and the secondary or even primary drop spot when it comes to that map. But there's something that will still be more mysterious, because for both groups, for both days, for those the 1 Miramar games per day, we got some very, very sudden playing paths. That means it's a huge question mark for all these teams, like on that northern half, which is extremely crazy. It will be the equal type of mentality like when you just started the tournament. You still need to test, you still need to play by what's in front of you. There's not much data that you can really rely on.
And so not so mysterious, but interesting is still, of course, our ads and our sponsors, and we'll be right back with you in a short bit. And we're back. It was a little bit of a not short break, but we're still here anyways, Tarzan. And I think that coming through, though, into his first game, I am very excited to see what these teams have to offer. Because I want to go back to what you were saying about your points there, where you said, well, we've seen a fairly equal day one of maps in Erangel, but the Western really playing past for Group C. That's something that I think Group C, they haven't been challenged so much with. So even though Group A, maybe we're looking for a little bit more out of them when it comes to their physical state of play, but Group C, they still to actually generally on Erangel see how they play.
Yes, and I think that is just the pure data, but you never know like the state of mind of the groups, right? Like you can look at some other teams and they're playing so well, you can get fired up or you can feel defeated. It's really down to you, right? So we're looking at certain teams that we want to see them bounce back. We're talking about maybe TSC Legends, Avoid, and in particular TRG Direction. They have not been, playing as well as we want them to, but I believe they've put a lot of thought into, fixing it as well, and asking for advice here and there. Just not just them. A lot of teams, I can see they're trying to work through it, and actually that's great, and I wish they get rewarded for all this hard work.
Yeah, I think for sure that we're definitely looking towards the likes of Team Savage when we are at the top of the leaderboard for Group A. I think as well, Wizard were ones, and excuse me, but ones that really impressed. But when we look to teams who aren't so fortunate, probably TRG Direction, TSC Legends, the likes of Alternative Esport are who we're going to be keeping our beady little eyes on. And of course, as we do head through soon into this first match, I kind of think here coming into that, how these teams really feel going past their first day of performance, because now day two, even though you've had one day of competition, even though you still got one after this, day two is a pivotal day here, because if you don't do well here, you could fall down fairly quickly when it comes to your mentality, not just the points as well.
I think there's also another thing to consider as well, right? Like, so Group C played yesterday, and they didn't have a break and need to play again today. So we're talking about how important VOD reviews are. They may not have all the time they want to do that, but obviously they got to watch the side of Team Groups A from the first day already. So it's really a different school of thought. You can kind of justify any side of it, and the side of Group A as well had their break. Who knows? But we need to see how they play it, and that would be the best way to find out, guys. This is match one, and I just can't wait.
Oh, we are here the pivotal day, as we say. You have to perform well here, or be at risk going through the gauntlet of those final 4 games to qualify. As we said, only 14 teams can come out on top. And I think the most important thing is you have to look at these groups is not just fighting each other today, but they're fighting all each other. Every single member of those 32 teams, they're all in the same leaderboard. And that is what is crucial. Now that, Group A have faced Group B, Group C have faced Group D, they're on their second round of competition, you have to start to really perform if you've not had those results. And I think for some of those teams, surprising that we haven't seen some of those results come through just yet. I mean, you look towards the day top of your screen, TSC Legends and Conqueror, both staple names who haven't had that showing.
Yeah, I think we're seeing already some very interesting things here, right? Because we didn't have easy access to the Southern Island for Groups A and B, but K12 from Group A are going for a Novo drop. And so I think this is not going to be an easy drop if it weren't for this group. And we can see TRG Direction, a team that's lacking some gas, maybe even in a little bit of a low spirit as well, is maybe getting targeted drop on in Milta by the side of Avoid. So that is going to be quite interesting as well. So like, both of those teams were in Group A as well, and you can see it's not just them. The uncles are here as well, and this was actually this team's drop back in PMCO UK 2021 Spring Split. So they're coming back to their old drop.
You know they play it well, and by playing it well, they do, but TRG Direction, Barash says 9, and it will not be stopped just yet, but it will be the return. TRG, though, they had the extra member, Killer, who jumps on board as well, and they do survive barely. But more importantly, they keep all 3 players alive here.
I think that is just quite insane. Like the fact that the clash comes from these teams on this Western side that all from Group A really adds, some storyline to it. Did they plan to, or did they just all say, you know what, like, we don't know whether people are going to go to Milta. We didn't have enough data from day one. Let's just go for it anyway. And 3 teams went for it. And that's actually quite insane. And the side of Avoid as well, missing some chance to potentially third party this, but it's going to be quite hard, like through that distance as well. Like right now, they will need to see how to maneuver themselves through to maybe punish a team that has at least lost 1 player, because it's on that kill feed. They know it. But of course, 4 kills with the momentum going over to TRG as well. This is extremely important. I believe they only got, I don't know, like 7 points, something like that, or 5 to 7 points in that day one, and they come in with that squad wipe to start the day.
Of course, crucial that we said there are 3 players alive for TRG direction, because Avoid, they're on the opposite end of that road, and I'm sure they definitely heard those gunshots, and you do see them prepared to take that tactical strike onto TRG should they move out of their own form and out of their position. But as we look towards the rest of that location, and I'm very interested to see how his first phase did actually show up, because yes, you can clearly see that we're inside of the first phase down towards Milton. So assuming that we're probably going to see more of a southern side zone this time around.
Yeah, I think the game plan here is so key for both teams, because if they've done the homework, they would know that each other is in this city. There's only 40 seconds to go before it shifts, and they need to move at least 1,000 meters. Of course, phase 1 won't be a huge problem, but that game plan and that IGL short call is so key. Like, do we just say, just be careful when you move between buildings, but we need to keep looting? Do we have cars and all that stuff? Or do you just keep your eye on to slow down the other team? Like, there are plans that can really benefit yourself without and actually put pressure on your enemies without slowing down your game plan. So this will be very key here, especially for Avoid, because they didn't spend the early minute or so in that action.
And rightly so as well. K12 on that south side will be interesting to see how they cross into that zone, because they are even further out when it comes to 1,500 meters. And I do appreciate they are getting in that Jeep. They're getting on the road because they have to do so quickly. Yes, it is only phase 1. Of course, you can tank the zone, but I think that it is better overall to be inside that zone as fast as possible. In my own personal opinion, you could have your own opinion in certain situations, because it does give you more time to actually establish yourself not only in the zone, but gives you more time to get information of other teams also inside. If you fall behind, we talked about it before, how it can be difficult, and we have seen it already for teams to catch up and try to stay with the pace of the game that continuously keeps running away from them.
Yes, exactly. And I think sometimes what we don't see on screen that are still very important for us to remember would be how a team made their rotation. It's not just the timing of from which point to which point, right? That car formation and the pacing, maybe distance between the rotating players are so important when it comes to how much info they can grab, right? They can actually start the journey quite early, but they want to really spin around a certain area a bit longer before arriving to somewhere, or they can just go for a straight line in a very direct way. So all those things are something that we can't always see, but those actually matter a lot when it comes to this efficiency of that scout, as well as maintaining some information that can inform your mid-game rotations.
Is moving up towards that northern side. Yes, now Pollyanna, we're still not seeing that zone, but we can tell, well, it's not in the south side of the east, it's not in the north side of the east, so guess where, Tarzan? It must be a western zone, that if I am correct here, that we will be seeing. So that then includes a lot of decisions on those rotations, because it then makes you decide how do you rotate in, whether it is through the top northern part of Erangel, through that center part, or if you're a team even like K12, moving across that western bridge and moving into zone as well.
Yep, and I think what people need to think about, if I were any of the teams in Group A, I would say, look, it's a western zone. Group C had Western zones yesterday, and then we've got maybe Wizard Esports like taking some split compounds and being aggressive around Gatka as well, just taking the side of Everest. So all these type of info and data, not just in drops, but in the mid-game holding positions, right, and for the respective circle, are just so key when it comes to how to maybe clear an area and all that stuff. So these are what it means to study the game. This is what it means to add those extra credit and extra type of info to your mechanics. Like without these, it's going to be extremely hard. But we can see the side of TRG here actually suffered 1 kill, so extremely slow right now from this position. And the side of Avoid is not giving up on this. They know that they've got the numbers advantage. I would love to see them to speed up, make something to bait some shots, so that they can really wrap up this fight and start moving into the circle.
Yeah, I think that now you're going to start to get engulfed by the zone, and then it comes into positioning, right? Of how can Avoid ideally gatekeep, and that's why you see Silent, you see that second member of Avoid. They're moving towards what is here the strong side of this escape out of the compound of Milter and into this next phase 1 zone itself. Because if they can find this advantage of a positioning, TRG Direction can stay here all they want, but until they find those knocks, they're not going to be able to then escape and be able to move themselves around and find that funnel outside of the danger against Avoid. As Order, meanwhile, that phase 1, the blue has come in, and Farah and Insania looking to search for the kill.
And that is the time, you know what, like every single footstep count, like even for the sound of pulling the pin, would really turn the dynamics of this fight. Now that the position is given away, AV, the side of Avoid, want to take that 2v1. But you know what, there's a backdrop from behind, but that distance may mean that the support can't be there. So it will be down to the CQC mechanics, the timing of the 2v1 to make sure that they guarantee this kill.
Oh, the killer finds another grenade, but it's not going to find the player that he wants. And Insania off the back across the rooftop, making it so difficult to even maneuver away. And they are just continuing to corner Killer at the back, as now a third member will shoot up. And Insania Farah, that grenade did hit, but it's not going to be enough. Is there. Killer will fall. There will be no support because, again, Killer moved out of position for that support to be able to help in that situation. So next is, I think for them, it's all about trying to be unaware, or not avoid the awareness, should I say, of Avoid here, and actually then be able to move in very late. But as you can see, only bandages, so they're going to suffer quite a lot, even if it is only phase 1.
I think it's actually doable, like, to pull through this. After all, they've got those 4 points. If he just keep going towards that, maybe, like, eastern side, like, yes, there would be more tanking to do, but it's still early phase, and you just enter the zone when it's least expected, and then you can still get a lot of entry points. But on this side, though, 18-0 to a team that we talked about how they are not scared, the way that they play, and we want to see more of those plays, and this is how they actually have a bit of a up hand right here, advantage against the side of AL. So Alternative Esports may need to think about this other team that's not only today that they face both Group C teams, so they need to think about, you know, who and how they want to control this northern side. But TSC Legends are going to wake up. They told me that they are going to make this huge, but they already lost 2 players. Jar Jar knocked as well. Bujo needs to really make some miracle happen.
TSC, they need to find these points because they are on the bottom end of that leaderboard, but Shoot to Survive also needing those points because they too are on the bottom, and that molly will put Bujo away from the support onto Jaja. And now, as Shoot to Survive make those revives themselves, it's going to quickly turn into a 2v1 situation. But can Shoot to Survive take this quick enough to be able to turn this away, as Bujo did go for the flush from behind? They do find the initial knock. Can they find a second? Yes, they do. Bujo strikes down Shoot to Survive. Jaja will be revived just in time, and as a duo, they will move away into zone.
Man, like, the confidence there, like, it's just those small things. The timing of putting pressure to slow down the revive, forcing them to go into a space that the not player, being Jar Jar, can still grab some information via the window. So that is an extended fight. The price has been paid, though, but with 4 kills going into here, so for them to play as an experienced duo, there is still a chance. But of course, it's not going to be easy. They still need those zone luck and a lot of outplays.
Well, they are in the zone for now, so compared to a lot of these other teams, they do have a slight advantage. I think, however, they, as 2 players, are going to find it very hard to control these strong positions in zone. And as that duo, you're probably expecting, right, to have to play more towards the edge. You're playing more on that weak side of zone, where you can't make those plays, such as, excuse me, for example, where they are on the hill, they have the high ground, and they can take this information and better themselves for the future because they have the players to do so.
And I actually love the choice, of these spots. Like, of course, like very, very knowledgeable when it comes to how to split around it, like, and the actual strengths of it. Just using that landscape, they will have that variety of the choices when it comes to these preferences in power positions. But Costi, should I say, Prada just peaked a little bit too aggressively. Team rate actually currently standing in 9th place delivers some pain in the head.
For Raid as well, one of the newer teams you could argue stepping up. However, they're not new players. We have seen them recently in PMNC, so they are experienced players when it comes to UK competition, and we know that they are capable of putting out that work, as Phase 3 will also close in, but where the work will have to go for these players to get back into it, well, it's going to shift over in towards those fields and just above Ferry Pier. So immediately what looks into my eyes is those hills and around those bunkers of Erangel 2.0, just above Ferry Pier itself, above the Word Pier, and above where K12 currently are, because that gives you not only the protection of hills and the forest to cover you, but also information again down to the fields where it is more flat and it's more tricky to make that rotation. As alternative, they do not go for the trigger. They let 1802 in favor of hoping to move further in. I like that coming through from Alternative.
I think it's great, like, just to know that where a team is heading to inform the rotations. Now that they're down to do it and have no spot in the circle, that is a very important, type of trigger discipline that we see here. But this circle is going to be so nasty. Like, when it comes to power position and high ground, we've got kind of a triangular formation. We've got, on that circle, the top left side and the top right as well as the bottom. And we've got a key compound that can usually be shared amongst, like, 3 or even 4 teams in that middle. Otherwise, we've got a lot of open ground. So that really prompt rotation and quick scouting will be so important. Just claim it and start to set up and control. If you are just slower, you will be with the how shall I say this? With the disadvantage, you will be the one crashing. You will be the one who may lose players, against a team that's already well set up.
Do you know what I'm looking at these team status? So is how aggressive these teams are going to be come the late game. And my eyes already immediately get drawn to the Cherriks, because when you look back to their first day of play, yes, we had Team 1802 and Wizards here, but they were very passive. And they, yes, picked up one chicken dinner, but you have to look at how we picked that up. And it was all off the back of other teams' work. So I want to see if they can come in today a little bit more confident in their playmaking ability.
Oh, definitely. I think they got... So let me do those quick maths here. Basically, not 80% of their points from that one game, and they play it in a very passive way. And but also on screen there, when we're talking about how teams got their points, I want to talk about Team Savage. Like, they were a team that in the past, even in PMNC, we talked about how they, even when they get blessed by the circle by claiming these compounds, which is as well as strength, like, because they prioritize them kind of pretty early on in mid game, and late game they just crash for it. But to have a decent split and sensible split is so important. Now that they're in one of the most popular compounds, I should say, with a pretty huge 4x1 split, it's not going to make the support easy if any teams want to crash that. So I want to see how they translate into the later game. After all, we still got 13 teams and 48 players in this open zone.
Of course, unfortunately, TRG Direction as well going to fall out to that blue zone, as they cannot survive. They just were a little bit too late with only one player. We said it was going to be hard, and unfortunately, they have felt that be the case in this first game. As we look again to the fourth shift, and it does go down towards those hills. This is where it really gets important. Of course, there is a compound there, Tarzan, but not ideal to really be taking it, because considering that it is very approachable by teams coming in from that south side.
I think it's about having a very bold scout and have a quick response to whatever the hypothesized situation or will be upon crashing it. You can see, excuse me, just going for it. And they may just stop in the middle, we don't know, but like they may just make a short stop and scout further. After all, is one of the strongest compounds. But if you are given the choice, you want to know which side of this huge compound are you going for. But after all, it's quite open. A lot of teams may avoid going straight into that, so we have a lot of open fights. But that south side with that hill will be so important. You can see many teams are going for that contest.
1802 already losing one player, but you can also see Wizard. They want some of that. They want some of that rich line as K12. They won't give it to them. As 2 now fall for Wizard, and they are making that play for Knowledgeable 12. This is the type of playmaking we wanted to see coming through from them, and wow, they step up. Dragon as that solo player, we do know how much they can do, and before we saw them just yesterday make 5-6 kills as that solo, but they may not have that opportunity. They are inside the open. There'll be nowhere to run for them. Is also Knowledgeable 12 strike down on the 14 to enter into the south. Born for Victory also feeling that struggle.
It's not going to be easy, though. Like, the side of Knowledgeable 12, if they've done the homework, they would know how to hold this spot. I love the fact that they've held this early enough. Like, I feel like teams should give more priority to this position. The fact that you can have so many sides of control, a lot of dips to keep you well, that is huge. But you really need to know how to peek and shoot. That might be the formation getting broken by side of Born for Victory, and that will be one return knock.
Born for Victory, they may not be just out just yet. As K12 have now knocked 2 players and they are separated. Pranav will come back to Pratik, but it might just be a third. Hulu also going so low. Beast equally on the 5% sliver, single digits of HP. Kryzen on that north point of the fight, though. When it comes to that elevation, does have that advantage. Grenade will go wide. That could have been crucial for K12. Instead, they will now reveal their position, and that molly will force them slightly further back. As an age from Kryzen will strike through, will dodge out a window, but it looks to go straight onto target and does just that. Pratik will get knocked. And Kryzen has found the crucial turning of this fight, and Beast is that solo player. Yes, they are inside the smoke, but when you put the smoke down, Tarzan, you reveal exactly where you are positioned. However, Born for Victory, they are not out of the woods literally just yet, because Sherix, they are also here to play.
Oh my lord, like, I actually think that Sherrick's coming in this position being so late is insane. Like, they should have gotten punished for this, but because there's an ongoing fight, they didn't. And that is actually a type of decision that shows the style of the team when it comes to rotation into power position so late that you may just lead yourself to be stuck outside of the zone. So that really shows something. The Sherricks need to make some change to this type of rotations, but the stun skills may be there and trying to get the 3rd kill of the game. So after all, they might have timed this well. Maybe they heard the audio cues and come in to join that fight. But after all, this will be a bit tricky because it's on that edge. They will all need to rotate into this western shift.
And this is a problem for Sherrix. They rotated so late. Yes, they tried to go for the south side, but again, because they rotated so late, they opened up their position where Team Savage have now taken, and they have to just move straight back up into them. So actually for them, they fall out a lot for Sherrix when it comes to their overall positioning, and they will be relying on their gun skills. And so they potentially find Beast as that 3rd kill, but it won't strike far enough, and he will just get tickled by the grenade. Born for Victory do have the control of the zone, more importantly, however, and it's now up to them as well to make that aggressive rotation and try to cut them off. But again, positioning is so important when you are having so many teams around you.
It's so key to grab info towards the zone now and think about like the hypothesis. Like, if this happened, we do this or do that. But it's about getting ready already. Just get scouting to start and then get your cars like ready to go. And Sherricks still are playing quite really reactive. They're only going when the blue zone is there, and Born for Victory will feel some of the presence of other teams as well. Avoid needs to be a bit quicker now, stuck in here. They will not have the entry spot easy when it comes to that edge of zone on the south side.
And Born for Victory, they do look like they are struggling. Sheriffs were able to even cut them off. Yes, they lose one player, but Born for Victory are also losing one to the rest of KLR. Miran, they are waking up. They take now a double for themselves, but it will be the help there of also KLR Miran, with now behind only a solo player. Is now also the rest. Born for Victory. They settled back on the edge of the zone. Also now keep in mind, Sherricks, they were with that time able to control the zone themselves. Also K12 able to survive too.
And you know, Born for Victory is playing so confidently. They've averaged almost 6 kills per game yesterday, and they are continuing. Now waiting for the 9th kill. Actually, yes, they lost some players, but they found a spot, and they still got those cars and soft covers, and they will be slowly moving in from the south side. The side of KLR haven't shown us their skills quite a lot so far, so it's not going to be easy. But you see, Born for Victory are very, very aware of how to play the circle, where to get that immediate cover, to get some elevation, get some info before needing to make the next move.
And for the rest of KLR, as a solo player, as a duo player, should we say, because we cannot forget about Ripper. They actually, or I should say, because they can also fire down. They can also find an opportunity, but the spray is just a little bit too late, and Farah will be able to survive, but not for much longer. They will get confirmed through. You've got to imagine, yes, they do. And a Void will be sent packing into 9th position. Born for Victory, though, that zone barely on the edge of them, as it will hightail itself up towards the north side once more. Team Savage, and it's them to control this next shift. But can they do just that? We have criticized them for this. Now is the time to prove their worth.
It's not going to be easy, though. They've got a spot in the circle. When it comes to having that 2-2 split, the two players on the outside need to know exactly what they need to do, but you can see every side are trying to get some winners to control that same edge. We've got, actually clashing with Conquer UK. Both teams are trying to prove a point. It's not going to be easy. Southside as well. 18 seconds to go is a really, really far 100 meters for these teams.
And Hulu just dropped by Ibra from behind the double orange vehicles. They strike also pretty, also clear. Born for Victory now down to lose. Hulu completely out on the backside. You can see, they too struggling. But what will be against a stronger squad here of Snowboy and Conqueror fighting up against him. It will be Knight to strike down Mirano. And that quick pop like that is exactly what you need as the blue zone comes in. Only one direction left in KLR. They cannot control it. Knight will save the squad, and Jimmy there as well to join them. Conqueror, they too, that we mentioned them, they have been taking those knocks onto and for all intents and purposes, Conqueror, though, they're both outside the zone and need to do some walking.
Oh, you know what? This type of circle is when you get reminded of how important it is to just learn the map. Like, every bush counts, every hay bale, every tree, every rock, every small dip as well. Like, those who put the time in or just jot something down, screenshots or whatnot, this is when that work will show up and help you. Right? The side of AL just trying to find their way in still, but they survive quite long as that duo, and actually quite impressed. And if they still can find a way to slowly pace themselves and also ration the utilities, they may be able to get even more points.
Wow, crawling is exactly what they do. It's now TSC Legends. The Eagles on foot will enter themselves inside of Zone 2. TSC Legends so critical. As we said, they can grab these points, but Conqueror, Ari, they made the step in. They made the leap, and Prada are surrounded by the rest of, have the strength over onto Snowboy. They have potentially the angle into Stone. They have the player advantage. And Prada, they strike down all 4 directions. Ari, there is nowhere to go. And that will mean a very dead Conqueror member. And now, drop back down. 6 kills for them. Yes, a knock to their name. But they are again inside the zone. And as we slow this down, as Snowboy will also survive for now. Maybe has spotted out Born for Victory Knight. Steps back down, vehicle once again to protect them.
There will be so many solos and duos in this map, and it will be about managing and thinking what to take with you in that backpack, because it's time to remove those backpacks to minimize the amount of information that you're giving. And after all, down to 3 players now, but I'm actually quite impressed. They took a quite center position quite early on in this open field, and they're able to keep the numbers advantage pretty long. But this side won't be easy. They've been burning a lot of smokes. It's getting more and more open.
And for Team Savage as well, the other team with those members, that is the crucial point here. You've got to imagine. But Team Savage, they're not actually as split here, but they do control the zone. I think for them, they could be to their demise, considering they are clustered together. However, to also the strength of them, they can make those revives still happen if one gets knocked. Do find Born for Victory as we now fall down to our final 5. Sherix as well, also alive here. And TSC Legends and Conqueror, these solo players, so crucial. As we said, they can find these points, but it again is the strength for Team Savage. And very aggressive rotation coming in from Walker. Will draw all the attention and fire from Team Savage, but it's a surprisingly not punished for that entrance in. And I feel that could have been maybe an opportunity. Yes, trying to drag out players. They do dispatch Walker very, very efficiently with that grenade, but the downfall of 2 players. Sherrick's also behind. Finally, TSC Legends. One solo has been perpetrated, but Team Savage Rupo, they need to get back. They need to control that front line because now they give way to even more excuse me members as Walker will be revived.
And the fact that it's so hard to get info on the remainder of this lobby means it's so tricky to be aggressive even if you have the knocks coming through. And that is going to be like Team Savage so importantly covering some sight lines so that there's no nade that will threat the Nido going into that shack because it's just so easy to predict what's going on in there. So I think it will be down to these 2 teams, but let's not, ignore and underestimate the solos in here. That's going to be Sherrick's actually make it to here and Conquer finally having a decent game as well.
And for South as well, able to find themselves away, potentially a grenade. No, they will not find a grenade. It's Team Savage. They will grenade Sherricks and Shadow for all of that work onto the solo player will only be knocked by, excuse me, is now Rupo, Paraboy, and Yui. Left to deal with the final trio here, but we do again control the zone. So excuse me, we have to walk up across the road. They're trying to split. They're trying to draw attention out. Double knock instantaneously. One straight back as a 1v1. Costy will maybe shove him down, but not before Rupo with a health advantage. Wipes, excuse me, off the board. But now Snowboy, they can step up. They can step up on a broken Team Savage. But will they have the aggression to do just that? The revives coming through. Nade will go bounce just one more over the top again. Another bounce. And Snowboy cannot find these nades on point. Molly will barely go wide. It will confirm one away. But they still have to make that push. And because they are not making that push, the revives come through in Team Savage. They have again the player advantage. Snowball, you've got to go.
And I think he just missed the chance to come up and get that win. Just look at that kill feed and you just know there's so many not players. They didn't really take that chance, but there's still utilities in here. And if can Kobe that one, it will be so important. And he's able to maybe slowly get in. And after all, he's not been... landing any shots, and that's going to be a bit... What the hell? Man.
That one was on point. And it only took, maybe 5 to 6 grenades, but he had clearly enough in the pack to be able to burst them down. And it was, of course, Conqueror who took that victory. I think it could have been done a lot cleaner, but I think overall, it gets the job done, right? You still end up with the same result. Team Savage, however, they do pick up the points as well as excuse me. So actually, overall, you've got to think here now, back to them. They've also made a stamp when it comes to them solidifying again their position on the top of that leaderboard.
I think it's just so tricky thinking about that end game. Like, yes, you're extremely high on adrenaline after very close, like basically 4v4 fight. Actually is a 4v3, right? But they got it. They want to reset. They know it's just one up. They just want to be safe, revive. But there's a way to properly do it. That shack will not get torn down. This is not Karakin where we have a black zone. Use it to your advantage if you need be. But I think it's just tricky for all these teams after all. That circle really, test those priority when it comes to utilities, how to organize your backpack as well. How much of each type of loot do you actually bring? But we're going to look at those stats after that game one. I think it's going to add a lot of spice to this group.
Of course, we said that these 3 teams were the top of the leaderboard in the first game, but I think, again, a good result coming through from TSC Legends to Sherricks, and I think to an extent, them also finding their position and finding a good start here to bring themselves up in the leaderboard. But you can see that these points have been sucked a lot by these top 6 teams because a drop down from 10 to 4 points already apparent in 7th. Alternative, yes, you get up there in the first half of the leaderboard, but 4 is just not quite good enough.
Yeah, I mean, Team Savage they're trying to show me and us that they've improved. And I think they have a certain style when it comes to controlling power positions, when it comes to that mid-game pacing and rotation that really helped them. And they went for these, a bit of a split. Of course, sometimes it's about zone lock, but they did hold those spots. It's not quite easy. Conquer UK, of course, would be so much about that solo play. But compared to, when we look at B4V, the side of, excuse me, all these squads are not afraid to fight, still extremely confident. And it's actually to our surprise that some of these teams are at the bottom. But after all, it's going to be a momentum game that you need to have from that first minute of the game.
And honestly, a lot of these teams who, yes, didn't make it, but I think the biggest surprise that both the Uncles and also Wizard down there on the very bottom, albeit for how aggressive they are, you can see that it can be punished.
I think it's about a little bit of mind game, right? When it comes to that preparation and data, you would say, hey, they will go there, they will go there. They probably would be quite confident after doing their homework as well. But sometimes it will be about, how should I say this? The analogy, not analogy, the case study would be in a very empty pachinki, right? In very, like several consecutive maybe Erangel games, and people would be like, do we go for it? Do we go for it? Because another team may go for it. So that become the very interesting part there. But Milta, maybe extremely hot. So we are definitely going to look at that in that game for today.
Of course, that was the first Erangel game today. We will be straight back after the break with them, not Miramar, Sanhok up next. And we are straight on back. Welcome everyone to the PMCO UK Fall Split 2021 season. Of course, my name is Harlan Wolf. Joined alongside me here is Professor Tarzan. And we have had one game so far down in this day 3 of competition where it was actually a case of Conqueror stepping up and taking that victory, albeit I think a little bit surprising, but Team Savage coming up next, and excuse me, of course, on board there as well. However, going into Sanhok, very much more an aggressive map, and I want to see that more aggression come through, but I want to see it smarter. And I want to see more cleaner aggression from these teams, because there is a lot of scrappiness going on, particularly down towards that south side.
You know what? I think the way that Sanhok's going to be interesting is because we've got some nice playing maps. After all, it's a small map, so people can rely on their research a lot more. So that can really lead to some tactical hunting, like hot dropping on someone, or even just say, let's go to our secondary drop spot, which we know quite well as well, because the team that's there, we don't think they are strong enough, for example. So like boot camp is somewhere that we're looking at because we've got some drops in there for sure last time for TSC, and they didn't have a great start in there. They lost their lives in that early fight. So we may have a round two. We never know. We need to find out, but it's going to be quite a spicy map for that reason.
I think as well to look through towards Sanhok and who has been really performing. I think that you look at the map, I think you probably can argue that, well, it has been again those strong teams who are showing up. I want to see, particularly on Sanhok, a little bit again more control coming through some of those lower teams. I think when we look back to that first game, I actually draw towards the rest of how Sherricks were rotating, and I think also to how those solo players were rotating in, because you did see a lot of teams on that northern side who didn't go for those wide rotations. Yes, they made it in, but they ended up being a solo player, which means when you come down to those point in time where it is very open, you don't have those players to be able to spread out, gather that information to be able to survive such a long state of play. And also we saw back towards Sherricks, of course, down to the south, they made actually that crucial rotation away from a strong position, only to have to keep walking back up there again.
You know what? Like, that is a great read when it comes to the macro side. There's some small things that I actually want to mention, Highland Wolf, because when it comes to rotation on this map that we're going to see, Sanhok, you need to know what you're facing. I want to talk about kill feed awareness. Like, I've seen some very good players in the past who will study the team number, which is extremely important. Like, we've got slot lists, right? You see in the lobby, team number 10 is a particular team. Like, you need to know which teams are fighting. You can almost predict based on the number on that kill feed, although it's just no confirmation. That is so important to carry over alongside confirmed kills to say, okay, we got, for example, a knock onto team 10 on this hill. They are definitely just a duo. Like, so these things are completely, overlooked, I'd say, at this tier of play still, right? Like, you need to say that sometimes you just, other than just being in a fight and not wrapping up a 4v2 early, is these very hard things. When we talk about roles of players, it's not just about scout, off angle, and all that stuff, IGL support. How about having someone with enough, awareness and with enough attention to note that, as well as looting and all that stuff? That will be so important when it comes to this mid-late game positions in claiming certain points on the map.
I think that when it comes to claiming points, we have to look also back to where these zones have been going. I think notably towards yesterday's game, where we did see it was very, very more towards the eastern side. And that was what was something surprising to me about those rotations and about how these teams played on the micro side of play, but also more so on the macro start of play. Because when we saw those teams getting caught out earlier on in positions like Quarry, where they didn't actually have that read on the game, they didn't really have that read on how they actually wanted themselves. Never mind looking at the rest of the game and all of the other players, but how they wanted to rotate in. I think that's also something that has to be given to these teams, and they have to be able to adapt and learn coming into these future games and competition, because if they cannot decide themselves and be decisive on how to continue to rotate in, given the fact that maybe their initial plan doesn't work out, then they're not going to be able to adapt when it comes to potentially the finals, when it comes to PMPL. And that's something we're really crucially looking for because we want to see how these teams perform under pressure.
Yeah. And you really hit that really important point there. When it comes to just info, like, so Group C have shown how they play around Quarry due to yesterday, and the side of Group A have shown how they may play around Trifecta and that northwestern island. So when it comes to where this circle is going to go for today, it may actually give a lot of indication when it comes to teams knowing which side to go. So if we have one that's similar to day one, Group C may be able to pull some sneaky moves because they've already got the info on Group A in how they play that circle. So all these things are extremely important. So I hope they've done the homework to this level. And I mean, for me, I don't exactly have to do that. If I want to do a great job, then I would do it. So for them who wants to win this game, for that to really define like their future and where they can go with this experience and opportunity, I hope they put that in. So that's a little bit of free info going out there. But you know what? We want to see these teams grow and want to see them to be their best versions.
I mean, hashtag free coaching, right? I mean, if you think I'm already bribing out the coaching from you. We're not quite in the finals yet, but I'm going to get more. Don't you worry, Daza. Don't you worry. But I hope he's going to reveal all the secrets in time. We're going to get them out of him. Like it's like sometimes drawing blood from a stone, but we will get all the secrets out of you, Tarzan. That is to be sure.
Oh, like I actually don't mind in a way. You know, like when it comes to being a caster, like I thought about, doing more of that sharing on social media, YouTube or whatnot. So like, don't be scared to drop me a DM like on the social. So give me some ideas when it comes to what you want to learn about. Yes, I can't really actively coach any teams, but if there's an area that a lot of people have interest on, I don't mind maybe talking about it for a little bit. But you know what? We are very ready to go over to that jungle. And I mean, that's kind of where I'm born, right? I'm supposed to be that jungle man. So we're going to go over to Sanhok right now to look at that crazy game to action.
Jungle, man. Jungle is where I love to be, but also this sponsors who I love, Xiaomi, where you can enjoy a super fast and lag-free PUBG mobile experience. Xiaomi's powerful, as you can see, Redmi Note 10 series. And going through to this playing path, it is going to be very, very central for the most part. I think there is not to worry too much when we look at the playing path because, of course, it is only 4K by 4K, as we say. So teams can, albeit for the most part, be able to strike wherever they like, unless the zone or the playing path does go very far away. Not the case this time around. So there shouldn't be a problem with teams finding their initial spot. What I want to see, though, with problems potentially is teams jumping on other teams because, as we say, it's a new group and it's now down to if these teams have studied where everyone else dropped previously.
Yeah, it's extremely important. And we've seen a pretty, stacked Northwestern Island before, but some of those teams on Group B isn't in here, right? So we will have a little bit of a change. You can see the priority from Team Savage still around those trifecta areas. And TSC, you know what? They love bootcamp and they want to repeat what they've done, but seems like they've only got that is a full squad right there in that lobster building against the uncle. So it will be kind of somewhat experienced players against very experienced players. Euphoria, we know what he can do alongside Jaja, especially from Nico Defense League. A huge win on that PMNC earlier this month as well. So this is going to be quite spicy.
But for Tony, they also aren't there in the fight. So actually, it's very crucial and well played here to the extent of TSC to not find themselves knocked early on. Because had they found themselves knocked, you get pushed. Whereas actually, Vitoni is still trying to walk in. And actually, you lose control of Vitoni being able to enter in. Because then Uncles they start to flank left and right. And it does become more difficult. You can see No Mercy is trying to do just that. They are very low, though. And only Banshees to heal. That could have been, I think, a punish coming through from Euphoria. However, they do not get a case, and now falling back onto the retreat, they do keep, more importantly, all 4 players alive.
I can't believe the side of No Mercy can run back to that central part without getting punished. Seems like a little bit of that delegation is not coming through for TSC, but if we look at that map, actually a Void will start with the aggression. It's going to be 2 kills, if not more, but that will be 12-18. Seems like joining in the party. That's just off that kill feed. And you know what? If I can do it, you guys have to do it. And this time, No Mercy actually to the mercy of TSC will live and will slowly retreat to that southern side, excuse me, and that will be southern. And a little bit loot can reset, and this will turn into somewhat of a stalemate. It's very hard, unless you know the map so well, to make some moves that end up leading to some openings or when it comes to advantage.
Yet TSC Legends, they have actually controlled now boot camp for that most part because you have pushed Uncles away. They're going to be heading towards boot camp hill, and unfortunately for them, you can clearly tell that they haven't explored a lot when it comes to this boot camp side. So if TSC Legends, they can continue to push this, I don't think they will, but in the event they did, they could have actually forced Uncles further away out of compound itself with very minimal loot on top. So it could have been a case where Uncles, against a very much more aggressive team, could have found themselves very far behind in the early game, probably about 3-4 minutes behind because they had been fighting for that long.
Yeah, you know what? Like, it really just brings the player side of me. Like, when it comes to fights like this, like they know they're still in close proximity. Like the type of comms that I want to hear would be, "Can you still watch Lobster? I'm going to loot for 10 seconds." So everyone needs to take turn to loot up, but at the same time keep an eye out, to keep that information. Like, if everyone's just in looting mode, then you don't have a clear amount of info for you to execute the later decision. The start for Tony here really is just using that position. This is extremely bold. It's extremely punishable as well. And I can see No Mercy probably have that information and will slowly just move back. And his team actually, if they can form a great, very synergized small push, they can capitalize off that and get an opening.
I think Vivatoni can be punished here. You do see the rest of those TSC Legends member. They have the more potential side to walk behind the building Uncles and catch that kill without being punished by TSC. I think Vivatoni is being very, very aggressive, albeit it might not be the best decision. However, now with TSC Legends, they have been able to enter up a little bit closer. Jaja has gone a little bit low here when he gets shot up, though, however, by Smile. Yet still alive. More importantly, Vivatoni still calling their way in, and as the punish potentially does come through, oversteps now become crucially punished by Vivatoni in that event, and that is why Jaja is looking to keep them there, because the moment his smile goes out once more, Vivatoni, you expect to pop back up and find that knock.
It's so hard. Like, you can see Jaja's got absolutely no mess. Like, when he tried to peek, but not to shoot, but to ping the building, it really shows the importance to establish a naming system in these hot drops. Otherwise, it's going to be so hard. But Jaja delivers anyway with the iron sight, and here comes the fight.
And now with Tony, they just walk up, find the easy knock. There was actually no awareness through from Uncles, but Vivatoni has to survive doing just that. A second knock, but where's the support from his team? There's Euphoria with a third. There's Euphoria with a fourth. And the Uncles eliminated once more. Unfortunately, not their night, but TSC Legends, they are stepping up big as well. Here is Alternative, trying to step up against a very aggressive board for victory in this first game. Struggling this time around, but they have found those revives.
Oh, and that's a beautiful nade. And that, B-Roll-V, like, I think it's one team to watch, like, for sure. They in skirmish fights, they are so synergized as well, and they're not scared. Yeah, they don't have high amount of HP, but they don't care. They just come in and just use that info and just push in, just to capitalize on someone's fear. Like, when you're not decisive, they would just catch you off guard. Born for Victory is really showing some potential in here.
And for Kryzen as well, already using the time that they have on the front side, all of that distraction to be able to move around the back. Now that Kryzen distracted Godmel, so look, immediately the rest of the three members are there as well, and Godmel's completely nowhere to go. Born for Victory, a very clean flush. That's how you like to see it.
Exactly. I mean, they might be just a tad slow at the start, but when they for sure know it's a 4v2, even if they were on low health, they just came in, like, pinch in so nicely. It's almost like spiral, like, rotation onto that one building. Someone's, like, always watching, someone's always baiting. The crosshairs are ready, the profile's there, and the fight was clean, and they claim Painan with no issues. But, of course, it's still quite early on. Like, these early fights, great for momentum, but you really need to think about transitioning into certain types of plays in late game as well. But that is a beautiful spray from Golden to punch the side of KLR. It's going to be even more. This is the last one standing, but welcome, say thank you. I would say one before I go.
That I thought was gonna be a clean knock from Wizard. That was a beautiful pinch through the vehicle onto vehicle action, but welcome. Now a little bit of trouble. Will confirm through one. The zone gonna help him do just that, but Wizard, they're still looking for the push. The zone will be able to knock him down. They do find the banshees. It will be in time. But Wizard, with that healing, do have the opportunity to move in even further. Golden on the backside, Joker on the front.
Tricky right here, because KLR's rotating quite late. They've got no loot. And now they've got no life.
Yep.
So the questions
Well,
need to
that's
be
it.
asked. The question needs to be asked.
Yeah.
800 meters from the zone in phase one, you rotate from
True.
somewhere when Wizard
8
is
minutes.
supposed to be exactly. They're supposed to be the a cow team as well, and you just come in and they have the priority to set up around here to hunt down a team that has been late for no particular reason. Right.
I mean, we've had about 40% of the game, right? I mean, 8 minutes in, you should be expected to have the loot on board. You're expected to have the loot, I think, realistically, by 3-4 minutes into the game, enough to at least contest that fight. And yes, you maybe were contested before, but in the case here of KLR, they weren't. They weren't in the case of boot camp and having to fight the way back on a fight that they couldn't really win. And unfortunately for them, I think we do need to see a little bit more proactiveness when it comes just to the basics of PUBG.
Yeah, I mean, we need to go back. I think it's down to themselves to find out what's really like the problem there. Like, yes, on the bigger map, you can say, hey, we've delayed phase one. We've delayed looting phase because we've got a long distance travel to our favorite spots. Not really a justified reason on Sanhok, right? But this time around, we love the side of Team Savage. To be fair, people would know by now that this is their favorite compound, and they hold it in a way that they were able to clear out some teams, but the rotation out of it is extremely tricky if teams intentionally study how to take you down and decide, trading some shots across the river as well. So that bootcamp hill can be quite interesting, especially when the bootcamp team being TSC legends, and now that they've only are down to 3 players, but they had this momentum, and I don't think they are scared at all, although day one haven't gone so well for them.
Excuse me as well, going to be on the hill towards that boot camp site, as well as now Raid moving up to very aggressive teams. And excuse me, it is very similar position. However, I like that they made that adaptation. Instead of going towards the buildings where, of course, Team Savage currently are and trying to play on that low ground, you immediately see them this time in Sanhok going for that information. And they're trying to, again, go for the high ground. They're trying to focus on the strength of where Sanhok is just based on the map locations itself, and then move down into zone accordingly. This, I think, is very smart, and I love to see teams actually using and utilizing these basics of boot camp hill. Yes, it is a very common spot, but you do actually notice that this is really the first time we're seeing a team take advantage of such an obvious location.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be extremely harsh on excuse me here, okay? They played this spot before. When it comes to PMNC, we talked about them claiming this spot, but, not striking when it comes to, at the right time, because they allow people to reset or whatnot. Right now, they're in this position and trying to. This is such a strong spot to allow people to come in when you're well set up to kill someone who's trying to, scout this hill, right? Why the hell would they trade shots with Team Savage in trifecta to play so loud that people either won't come in so that you can't farm the kills, or 2, you allow someone to tactically sneak up on you to strike? That, it doesn't make sense. You can't farm, you can't confirm any kills unless the side of Team Savage is making a huge mistake. Now, 2 of them is not. This is the mistake there. I believe it's all started when they started trading shots and not playing stealthy from this power position for what is strong for.
And for TSC, that long-range knocks, I think now you're really looking at, well, can TSC confirm those kills? Because those knocks otherwise, I think, fairly useless. Yes, Raid could have punished with those knocks. They maybe did hear those shots being fired back from, excuse me, as Raid, they do now finally strike. That is what we're looking for, as Prada will also find themselves knocked, and Walker is the only one alive, but they surely don't get away with this. Raid, you gotta imagine they start to push.
They play so loud, and suddenly 4 teams are looking at them. I don't know
Team
what
Savage.
they are doing. Like, I'm extremely disappointed when it comes to how they play this hill. It's not the first time, and they made that mistake. Yes, I'm harsh, but I hope this is the last time.
I agree.
They can play it that way,
agree.
but you can only do that from phase 5 to play loud, to really funnel teams to other areas where you can exert dominance. There's still rotations that they may need to make, and there's still maybe a 1v4 that they need to make. If teams want to come in to join the party, it will be more than 4. Walker is the last one standing for, excuse me.
But he locks himself in the outpost tower, so actually there was nowhere to go. I think that retreating back, if you're going to run anyway, he's very dead, guys. Don't worry. There's even more grenades and mollies will be sent forward. It will be there. The rest of, wiped out. And I think a very, very punishable plays coming through from them, and I definitely agree, as I said, with how they played. Just way too active on the map when you don't need to be. If you're going to take Bootcamp Hill, it is information that you're looking at. You want to move down there if you want a better team fight spot. Sherix as well, just going to be absolutely punished for walking in unawares of actually knowledgeable 12 in this location.
Yeah, you know what, like K12 played this stealthy, right? But it's fine. They've got a spot in the circle. They're only a trio. So to play stealthy in here to get like those 1 kills, yes, it's a little bit cheeky, but it's completely fine. Like the problem now is for them to get out of here, because they didn't really have a position to respond. If Sherix want to say, we're going to overwatch this whole compound, we will even tank it a little bit, because it's so likely that we both need to leave, and we'll be able to third-person peek you when you can't do the same against us, because we've got the high ground, we may even have the vehicles. So K12 to strike there is fine, but they need to make sure someone will be there to respond when they allow someone to rotate away with the vehicles. Otherwise, Sherix can still backstab them and trade.
And Sherix as well, the way that they now have to move into zone, it's going to have to be even longer. It's going to have to delay them so much. And this is why I feel that for Sherix, when you want to see that proactivity and getting into zone, it's just not going to feel like it can be there in this second game either, because they just don't make the active and smart scouting that they need to do beforehand to even find that position inside enough to get enough information to then play that late game correctly. TRG as well, one of those other teams that we are really desperately looking at to find some form of points on this leaderboard. Surprising, because I think had we actually alerted TRG a month ago, we probably would have been saying that they were one of the favorites to even win this competition.
Yep. Man, you know what? I'm so angry still, like, from what happened earlier. I need to shake it off, like, to be fair. But these are the important consideration as well. Like, when it comes to, I mean, why would people know that you're in there, right? Like, they either track you, or maybe you try to fight, and you're in a hut that has no escape routes. Like, everything's been, choked. That's how you can lose life. So I think that is still under that topic of trigger discipline. And sometimes we're talking about shooting like pre-shift as well. It takes a lot of thinking, right? Yeah, I know you can land those skills. I don't mind if you can land 100% headshots, but you're not doing at the right time. People can do toe shots on you across your whole team and still wipe you out. That is macro play. That is big brain. That is why it's so important to have more than your skills. Like, it's not just mechanics. And right here, the thing about that circle, Team Savage is still in there. Like, if it's continue to shift away from bootcamp, like, think about how hard it is for any team to have played so loud in there. And Ruins finish. We love it. We've seen PM in PMNC that Conqueror has held that spot as a trio and still able to maneuver towards the end game, right? But it's a very tricky position to play, and we talked about why in the past. We may talk about that again. And now Sherix playing passive may be able to cause damage to others.
Oh, they step up, find one, but can Sherix find the next? No, they will not. Avoid immediately. But to help strike back is now Sherix down to only one player. They started off as a duo here, albeit to their own demise. Nate does have control of the zone, but it's hard to say that Nate can really win this fight, considering that, well, there are still 3 members of a Void up. 1 grenade will do it. You can see the off angle. Never mind that just a grenade will be enough. Soylent will also get fell down to a grenade in return, but a revive should come through, albeit they do have to be quick. Look behind them. 1802 are now pushing in as well, so we need to be able to find that 3-man at least coming into the zone. However, 1802, again very late, and only one vehicle, but we do potentially find that knock, so you are required to do so.
What, like, why? Okay, yes, fine. You got a kill. You've got rotation to make, so you don't have the high ground. You're all in one car, and you want to open fire upon someone who can blow up your car completely. What are these players doing sometimes? Like, but 1802 got that confirmation, and now all in one car, actually able to rotate
Should
around
be punished.
that. And that is just insane. Like, I think there's a lot of macro points that we can talk about here, but they got in with a numbers advantage, and I hope the style actually worked for them after all. But B4V, not easy in this skirmish as well. So many teams will hold that down. As you can see, Raid has been opportunistic as a team. They take in the side of completely white, excuse me, from them opening fire. They come into a different position, hang outside of the zone, and say that it's better to just hang 50 meters outside of the zone because we get so many sightlines. They waited and waited, strike at the right time, and they know that they can get into the zone with no issue. Like, that's what I want to see when it comes to macro play. 1802 will need to continue with their route. They've been playing aggressive. Hopefully they can take this one as well.
Oh, we take two for now, but Pratik, maybe, no, they will not have something to say about this. It will be 1802, the very happy Snowman, very happy 1802, very happy as it will confirm another kill onto Albert. Got caught walking up unawares on the hillside. Not quite ready for that fight back in Cray as well. Now down to the solo player on the edge of zone as phase 5 moves itself up once more. Yes, to the most part of Ruins, but crucially, I think around that real part of Hillside and around to where Shoot 2 Survivals who are much stronger in the ability to the potential to take this game. However, it is going to be very contested. The fortune, however, on the other hand of this that Shoot to Survive have is that a lot of those teams are on the northern side, and it's going to be very difficult for them to rotate into Ruins to effectively find that spray on. It's also Cray will find the spray to 1802, does confirm one, and that one-on-one does play out for now. But Cray, can they find even more? Bunzed now puts in another grenade. Will take Cray down to half HP. Cray moves back towards blue to try rotate away. Bunzed trying to catch him on the move across.
You know what?
Comms,
come through.
Yeah.
It's AV. They are solo. Pressure and pressure.
Yeah, right.
Like, these are the things. This is why we're talking about these skills. And I mean, like, that background, like, the experience in the coaching really, like, helped me here as well to give you that point of view. Like, 1802 need to catch the funnel. They apply that pressure, but Cray got away. I cannot believe it. But the tracking is still happening. But that could have been an easy kill a little bit earlier. And Cray should not be able to live this. But 1802 let it slip.
Man, the fact that Craig gets away from that one, that's pretty illegal moves coming through from Avoid in that situation. That should not be the case ever. It's DRG direction. Maybe they also take down TSC. Yes, they do. Right as the zone grants their death. Is Euphoria the last one alive, but TSC down to a solo player because of that situation. And again, I think it just comes down to tanking the zone. If you know you are healthy, you do not need to take that fight. Let the zone do the work, as Team Savage will also prove to the rest of Conqueror from inside of Ruins on their move still out as the zone phase 6 will engulf them too. A lot of these players still to find their entrance in, and again the strength of how these teams already inside the zone can look to find those punishes. The Scorpio does get caught by Jack.
Important game for Conqueror. Not only did they win the first one, they're in here, but lost one player in there. That is exactly what you need to do. As a solo, would take an extra kill. TSC Legend is out, but not without a good fight as well. Conqueror, we've seen them in Ruins. I talk about how hard it is to control it because rotating between covers is so hard, but they held it fine and 4 kills on board. They need to move out of it though, and right now, the side of S2S is actually holding this compound circle after circle, but it will take more than just the split when it gets even smaller.
And for Shoot to Survive as well, they have a gift of a game. This should be free. You've got to think here, Tarzan.
Oh, 1802, but I mean, they've been playing so aggressive everywhere, just like leading the charts when it comes to damage as well. Like, sometimes you just need to hold that spot. Like, you need to wait for the next shift. Like, but coming into that position is extremely hard. I'm glad that S2S is set up for that, and now they just need a nade to follow. But it's actually completely fine for them to reset out and think, hey, now we've got other sides to think about. After it's still 11 players alive, they've got 7 more to take down if they want to win this game, and they do have the circle, most of them anyway. But 1802 will clear building by building, and with the utilities still in play, that is extremely useful for the late game.
That was good indeed. 1802, they find a second across. They will confirm at least one more kill before they fall out of this game. RainX now moves forward, steps forward to try punish 1802, but they're still alive. They're still inside the zone. They slide their way across. They will dodge one grenade for now. The sneaky moves. They dodge a second. They cannot find the accurate pinpoint shots as now Conqueror, albeit with distraction onto 1802, have found a chance to crawl up. The Conqueror have been stalled for now. The zone continuing to move in as Ari will be strike down. Snowboy so low. One tick of the zone will catch him. Has to run back in. Hisoka so low as well. Conqueror, they are on the edge of life. Another grenade straight on into Ari. Straight on into Hisoka as they run in. On target. Straight into the face of Conqueror. Shu2 survive up to 3. But can he find even more? The zone goes away from them. They wake up. Move forward. In towards 1802. In towards the zone, but we all have to get going. Raid as well, trying to find those throwables, trying to find a utility because they are the furthest away.
Oh, it's so huge for some of these teams. Like, can be anyone's game, like 2v3. And it's about time to nade that rock, right? Some of these names are just 2 minutes late. You got initial knocks on there, and you don't nade it again. But Raid will do that for S2S, and that's going to be a molly. Just missed it, though.
Does miss, not over the rock. And again, 1802 allowed to survive into the top 3. Now, finally, they will be punished. Shaq will fall down, but RainX, they cannot find a complete flush. So 1802 just going to go straight back to the revive roll. Pew. We should get punished. Yes, they will finally by 1802, though. Is a fall down. Shoot to survive. They may falter when it counts, but they still have one knock on the backside. Raid also down to a solo player. Scorpio walks their way in. Scorpio looking for Raid. Raid core completely off mark in 1802. They maybe strike second. They maybe take this game away. How is this allowed, Tarzan? 1802 steal the show.
I have no words. Like, this game has broken my brain, man. Like, I don't know what to say. There's so many of those small things that we can talk about. I almost feel like shoot to kill is in the compound. They are so the anticipatory loss is so huge. Well, we've got the compound, we've got circle, this and that. They know that it's on their side for them to win.
Yes.
That is actually, how should I say that? It's really. It overloaded.
He's broken, guys. You've done something bad to him.
It overloaded their circuit to the point that they are so close to getting something because they got the circuit that they can't even execute. The only thing that they've done particularly well would be to kill Conqueror by like nading a particular entry point. And but everything after that, when it comes to timings of the utilities, rotations, and game plans, the timing, synchronized play, it was extremely messy. And I can't believe that 1802 got that one. But you know what? A win is a win. And the aggression got rewarded.
Yes. I mean, if you just hide behind a rock, maybe people forget about you. It seems to work in the UK region anyways. 1802, they strike through 11 kill points with that game. An absolutely stellar win from them. And they take 26 in total. Raid as well, showing up once more with even more kills to boot. And I think, yes, Shoot to Survive, they do strike third in this match, but it shouldn't have been the case. It should have been Shoot to Survive clearly getting a win off the board here. I mean, this was one of those gift of a games that really fell apart. I think down towards really the positioning of those final few moments. I mean, you see Pew walking out on the solo, gets caught. You see RainX moving out as a solo, gets caught. Their failure to look on the backside of who is actually knocking them, that's what was their demise.
But you know what? Like they walked into the crosshair of the other team as well. Raid has been, trying to strike from the side for the past 20 seconds, and they still walk into that sideline. There's so many things that has hurt my brain in there, and, and I don't know what to say there. Like something, I don't know. It could be nerves. It could be the adrenaline from some of these teams, and that type of circle really does do something special to these players. But I want to talk about in particular two teams here, like TSC Legends actually starting the game strong. Yes, they were still punishable, small decisions, like small rotations, I would say, but the points are there and the aggression is there, and we expect nothing less from this team. But when it comes to Team Savage, it's one of the more sad games, I would say. They are not too far from where the circle ended from that trifecta compound, but the line of entry got themselves caught against another team that's well set up. So my question will be whether they can continue how they've played in the past 5 games and really come back and take this Miramar win, because if my memory serves me correctly, they did almost get a win, if not a win. So they've been playing amazing on that first day. So is a lot of question mark right now. A lot of question marks, but I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, man.
I mean, at least it leaves a lot of room for improvement, right? So there is only upwards and onwards from here for all of these teams. I think, to be fair, very much one of the teams who have started to impress me today have actually been Conqueror and the way they've been performing.
Yeah, and you know what? Yes, they got some, It's a different ways of playing that game. The solo play of finding the right pocket to end, that game one was great. But game 2 was pretty nice as well. They got that ruins. They were able to get some kills from the setup around there. It's not easy, but they made it count. And they just need to continue because so far our impression of this team, not just in this tournament or PMNC, I believe we've seen them in PMCC as well, Campus Championship.
Yes.
They've been extremely wobbly. Yes, there were roster changes in here and there, but we expect them to play at least like TSC Legends when they are in top form, and it's time to continue with the momentum.
Indeed it is, as we move through momentum on to the third game. Desert Dunes of Miramar will be next, but just a few minutes away. Oh, we're back. We've taken some painkillers, Tarzan, and we're here for Game 3 of PMCO UK Fall Split, Day 3 in the 2021 season. And albeit our beautiful sponsor, Xiaomi, where you too can enjoy a super fast and lag-free PUBG mobile experience on Xiaomi's powerful Redmi Note 10 5G. I mean, I'm going to mix up on my words, but I think I should be excused here considering what we've just saw. To be fair, Tarzan, that was a comedy show coming from some of those squads.
Yeah, like I know we've been harsh, but I think it's also important that we don't just explain what's on the screen, like in a very plain way. Like there is a very legit reason when it comes to the way that we reacted. Like when it comes to, in particular, the topic of trigger discipline, as well as timing of a particular, decision, and like that. Although for us a little bit funny, we try to make it. We tried to make it funny, entertaining, but like there was a lot of info from that game when it comes to how to play this game if you want to continue to progress. But we're going to look at some stats, shall we? Because that game, after all, would shake things up a little bit.
Of course, Team Savage up on the top of these overall leaderboards. Excuse me, sat comfortably in the second overall. However, they did kind of slip when it came to that second game. You do have to admit, and they allowed time and opportunity, more importantly, here those on the bottom. 1802, Raid, Conqueror UK, I think have been actually stepping up these three squads, albeit amongst the rest, very well today.
Yeah, I think the Sanhok Born for Victory and Team 1802 would be two particular teams to look out for when it comes to not having a previous showing. But I've heard some of these names, some of these players grinding through the scene, and the way that they played really show something here. It's not perfect, but a lot of good thinkings going through, especially when it comes to Born for Victory. You can see from that kill point as well, like 6. That is averaging at least 6.5 kills per game, right? So that is a very, very good amount like for them, and is amazing to see their aggression from a team that's know how to get some placement points as well.
I think overall, considering that aggression, something that we really wanted to see coming out from these teams, I think that Raid have definitely been showing that more so than the rest of these teams in the top 8 that we're really looking at. And also, you have to note that again, it is a rise in placement points coming through from TSC Legends, who struggled in 3 out of their 4 games yesterday. And now coming into today, yes, it hasn't been the cleanest of shows, but we have been improving. And that's something we want to continue to see. Whereas actually for the likes of the Uncles, who started this day off in that first page of results, now almost dipping down to the 3rd.
Yep, I mean, it's really hard to say though, like because it's also very peculiar how they got some of those kills. A lot of those would be from some solo plays from that first day, and other than that, it's been a little bit hard to define. The style as well. Like, of course, a lot of really a neutral fight as well, and all that stuff. So, hard to say. There's more games for us to look out for, but you know what? What's the scary thing is, I don't know, Wolf. All these teams have officially played half of the games for the group stage. And I know, like, some of them may not want to be remembered for that, or like reminded. Yes. I should say. And but yes, it is halfway through.
Yes, so rightly so. It is halfway through, and I think that now these teams, with that turning point, really have to wake up. I think some of them, because considering that you have played 50% of the games, it doesn't look good. You do look at some of these teams who are still down there. KLR, TRG, Direction haven't even, with the extra 2 games considered on top of 2 other groups who aren't even playing today, been able to find their way out of that bottom page. They are the only 2 who haven't managed that, who are playing in Group A and C today. I really actually particularly want to see something from these 2 squads. I think, yes, we kind of weren't so sure about KLR coming into this tournament, but TRG, again, not to hit the nail on the coffin too many times, but actually, we really, really did expect this to be one of the favorite teams coming into this tournament.
Well, definitely they've got a lot of fans, right? But we talked about the so-called potential slump that can carry over from a previous tournament as well. And something's not done yet, like to the
something's
effect,
wrong
to the effect that we want, right? So something's like missing, but I have the chance to speak to some of their players. I can at least see that they are trying very hard, but sometimes you just it's hard to find that right mindset, and everyone needs to be on the same page. But game 3, quite different to the second one. And the Miramar, we talked about the interesting thing here. We haven't got any like normal playing paths. It's been very sudden. So we need to see this playing path right now for this game 3, guys. That will go. It will be extremely interesting for us. But seems like it's going off a little bit of an interesting one. Is still going to be a little bit skewered from the south side to the top right of the map. That will be a little bit of a different one. We will see maybe Los Leones in play once again.
In over towards Los Leones, his game just doesn't give up for it. But also, I think you have to really note here that coming through into this game, yes, TSC, they're going to be one of these teams that we're looking at. I think the TSC coming back into this third game, it was one of those matches on the first day of play that they actually did do well on. We said that we had one good game. This was it. And I think that coming out here, rising a little bit through that game 1 and game 2, we talked about momentum. I think if any team can do that in this group, they are probably it. I think next to that being Team Savage, who were also very consistent when it came to playing here on the deserts as well.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to make a prediction, okay, guys? Just based on the fact that we haven't got anything closer north when it comes to the past 2 days of Miramar, everything to the north of Saint Martin can be a little bit chaotic. Like, we have zero information there. We've got so many teams heading towards that segment that was almost impossible for some of these teams to reach. El Azhar is a bit different, right? We've got one playing path that allows some of these teams to go there early on, but we were talking about Campo Militar, like Cristóbal, and all that stuff, water treatment. That is a very big question mark. As you can see, there's a cluster of teams going to there, and it's the first time that they will find out each other's preferences if they haven't met each other in scrims, and that is going to be a very interesting segment of the map.
Oh, the zone again, the third time so far in this tournament for day 3 in a row here, and it's gone towards Los Leones. I think this also now speaks to these squads of, well, if you have made mistakes in Los Leones, if you haven't found that opportunity up to the top, you can be a little bit more aggressive because you do know, or you should know, the positions here of players playing around this location, on top of the fact that you have played this location once before. Fortunately for they do barely survive here, and now Avoid. We have to do a little bit more pushing power to be able to find that knock. That grenade won't find it.
I think that might be a nade onto a teammate as well. Luckily, they've got one first aid there. Like, Sherrick's almost lost that position, but Silence did so much damage with that molly, and the read of the early situation and the audio cues actually was great. Now that the other player have got no first aids at all, this could be a very important 2v1. Is about time to pull the trigger. It's not going to be easy.
Oh my days, he just fluked him. The man has the power, the 100% skill here. Nesta, what is he doing? He's got back to his whole team. Oh my days, we started already here, Tarzan.
It's a little bit funny. I think chasing someone down, and when it comes to Los Leones, like, the elevation early game is important. Yes, it's hard. You may need to land on some of those like billboard type of stuff and rely on whatever loot that you get, but that is so important. And I think the naming system that we talked about in boot camp in the previous game to apply in the city will be even harder. So, like, I personally don't drop in Los Leones. I've never coached any team that love going there. It's just so hard to be an expert in that city. But you know what? Like, they may know better than I do, but they need to really show that from the plays, because it's just extremely tricky when it comes to early game. How do you split properly and logically to get the maximum info in that city is actually an art form in this game, especially in this huge, probably the biggest city across all maps, right?
Yeah, true. I mean, is this also why we don't see like any of your players that you have coached in the past inside Los Leones?
Well, yes and no. Like, so it seems like some of them have like their current bad influence and drag them into here. I'm joking, but there's a way to do it. Like, there's a way to do it, and if the rest of the squad can really pass that information on, that's important, right? So it's like learning on your own, learning from each other as well, and learning from your enemies, most importantly. You know, like, speaking of that, I want to talk about mindset. Like, we often hear so much like in players how they just really tore down their own mental, thinking, oh, I didn't have zone, I didn't have luck, they do this, he's camping or whatnot. Like, how often do you say he played that well, they played that well? That is so important. Like, that type of phrase reflects a mindset that can continue to grow. And we talk about like this type of stuff in many sports science research as well. Same in productivity gurus. So that is a light note. So if you want to look out for these type of terms, search like the growth mindset, and they would actually compare that to something else, and that would be great. But Concord UK, Hacienda Talpatron, we are back, and they are back as well around this area, and we've commented on how they play this segment so many times, and to really land some pressure early on, maybe be to their advantage, but it's still extremely early to tell, because this is off the northern side. There's more rotations to make if they wish to take that priority.
I think as well, when you look towards these teams moving back in from the north side, and we take a step back on the positions of everyone coming into zone as well, and that's also something I'm interested in, because there are a lot of good positions coming into this zone, and particularly I know actually towards the graveyard, somewhere where we haven't really seen too much action or too much love for, and also towards that church side, going to be much more useful this time around, and particularly those hills also more towards the eastern side of graveyard hills themselves too, for catching those players and teams roaming in from the top.
Yep, and you know what? Still very early on, and it's the first time that Team Savage can come over here. We've seen them in this position many times, like through the past tournament. And you know what? Like this time round, they've got some huge rotations to make. That may actually stop them from playing the style that they've been doing so well with. You know, like they made these early prompt rotations, crashing and scouting key compounds. But this time around, 2,500 meters from the zone, that won't be easy. And Concrete here as well, like we've seen this before. They hang around Hacienda del Patron, like they know this area. They would put the pressure on and sometimes even get out-rotated by the northern teams, and then they feel the pressure later on. So it's time for them to think about this Euphoria with the 3 times on M224. It's a little bit of a fetish, you know, like that 3 times scope on a boat action. When you hit something, it feels extremely good.
I mean, I'm not playing enough PUBG. Mainly also, I'm not good enough at PUBG to be able to land a sniper 3 times scope on a bolt action onto a player. I mean, this is something I'm still to experience. I mean, I'm like a virgin when it comes to being able to catch players. I'm still on the bot level of killing people.
Hey, you know what? I can maybe coach you through that. Just play some more games
Please.
from time to time. But
I think you won't want to coach me though afterwards. Like, I'm pretty bad, man.
We will see. We will see. Okay, once again, let's talk about this. So, yes, not too far from the zone, K12. We talk about trigger discipline. You can take 2 kills. Do you have enough rotation options out of that? The answer is, I'd say yes. You can go quite wide around here, but the Tony is doing something extremely weird. Yes, I get it. You want to slow down the pressure upon your teammates, but that's going to be so hard, especially after losing so much health as well. So it really being caught off guard, you know, by this position, like by K12 right here, and that will be Conqueror to continue controlling this segment. I mean, we expect this from them for being a team to have so much experience around Hacienda.
I mean, I don't know what I just witnessed, but my mind is pretty blown. I mean, TSC Legends jumping in on board there, I think they were probably, maybe one of them died in Discord call. We can put it like that. Is that what we can put it to the excuse that they lost out in the Discord call maybe, and we just didn't realize that one of them like was actually wanting to stay back? I mean, Bujo gonna fall as well. TSC Legends, unfortunate series of events, shall we put it that way?
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing that Conqueror did well is that they got the early info and the position accordingly to catch the funnel. Like, no matter how wide the TSC Legends wants to rotate, like Conqueror seems to be ready, right? Or they just didn't go wide enough for the South TSC. So, like, this game is so important when it comes to providing data and info for how these teams want to play the northern side. So, like, some of these teams will be benefited from it, like, 2 days later. But right now we have La Bandita right in the middle. So, like, Los Leones, teams need to think, do I stay here or not? Like, it's going to be quite tricky. I'd say the north side of Los Leones would probably be better. There's so many, like, open... Think about that central belt, like, vertical on that map. That's where a lot of players will be. If you play white on the outside, it's going to be quite hard as well. So many compounds with a very open surrounding.
I actually love what you do see some of these teams doing already, is heading actually not into just the hills of Los Leones themselves, but towards what the back of the hills, as Ari will also fall. K12 strike down another. but towards the back of these hills of Los Leones, because if you start to go on the front, yes, you can catch those from Los Leones, but it's very ridgy, it's very like hilly, it's a little bit tricky if you do get caught coming out of it to be able to escape through to the main portion of La Bandita, right? But if you move towards the edge of those hills overall, you can actually still catch those teams coming out from Los Leones in those difficult ridge lines and those dips, but also more importantly, you have that option to still rotate regardless into La Bandita, into the main portion of the map, because you still control that high ground as well for information. It's just a general good spot.
You know what, like that's one thing, but we also want to talk about the edge here, because this is exactly what's going on the screen right now. The side of Team Savage just got killed, like basically, like so many of them got killed, like stuck around here. Like K12 is a team that got so many in their backs, like it's from the timing of this rotation to really third party this, but they force send this into the compound, and Danoka, although they've lost Ari, will be able to get some sightlines to completely pinch this compound if they do it properly. Side of Team Savage is, doing the very typical stuff. They want to, go to uncontested loot. They will slow down the phase one rotation, come in with some loot, but come in and do some strategic tanking, but you need to do your homework, you need to do your scouting, you go along the main road, you get punished, and then also get knocked by the zone as well, some of them. As you can see, the Noka punishing K12. Yes, you had momentum almost for the first time in this tournament, K12, but this is not how you hold that position. There's no particular reason as to why you need to send all four in there in a compound of which the escape path is so predictable.
Well, I think what we were trying to do was actually go for Danoka. We saw the shots come through, but then they never really realized it. Well, you can't get up to Danoka, because if you decide to go in that one vehicle, well, Danoka's just going to shoot that vehicle and you're all going to go bye-bye. So for Danoka, he's actually taking advantage of the situation by knowing the plays and knowing the map better than K12, and being now pinched by those two players in the backside of Conqueror, he's also allowed time for them to step up inside of this zone as well. So only going to pinch K12 harder, and for K12 constantly also tanking this zone, it just gets very, very messy for them.
You know what? I'm going to continue to be harsh, okay? Like, I feel like Snowboy just grieved Conqueror UK there. Yes, Danoka is holding all this side. He's applying that pressure. He can play so loud to push them away, but then the start of Snowboy and Hisoka is set up to choke the other side of the escape path. But for Snowboy to open fire there, it actually allowed K12 to say, you know what, we shouldn't come out that way, but that is also Danoka just keep rotating on them, so K12 will eventually go down to the zone if they know the map, and they of course it's very early on, they don't want to die to the zone, but like, it's for some professional teams, this is the type of situation that they will just die to the zone and not give you any kills. So like, Danoka's been doing the work that the rest of this team need to strike at the right time to get every single kill and not give it to the zone.
And of course, the zone here should be what claims it. I think for K12, you've got to accept, well, this game is pretty much all but done. There is no way we get out of this. We just give the kills to the zone. We don't give them to Conquer UK. We allow it easier for us to get inside of that top 14, of course. Prana's still going to go for those shots either way. That zone will do enough damage for them. Without a first aid kit, they will not be able to find that revive onto Pranav, and as a result, they do have to step up. As Danoka steps down into the compound, looks for that final first inside the blue zone. This could be risky. They could lose their players. The Conqueror here if it does not pull out well.
This is extremely slow at the same time. Like, Danoka need to just do some work a bit earlier. Yeah. Yes, finally okay, let's talk about this. Like, they got the kill feed. They know they've got a numbers advantage. They've got those knocks, right? The reason why they shouldn't open fire a little bit earlier for Snowboy to do some work, they need to wrap up this fight quick, because they don't really have much loot. They've got a lot of distance to travel, and when they just can't wrap it up quick enough. And now they're stuck in the middle. Yes, they got some kills, like the side of K12 gave you some of the kills in that eventual pinch. But what would that mean for Conqueror now that they've got some kills? Yes, they've got the momentum, but they don't have a lot of loot. They don't have the priority to the zone. And then that will be a huge question mark here. So I think there are certain things that we can think about when it comes to pacing of these early game. When do you want to first play slow, therefore you can wrap it up fast, or do you just want to do a little bit of stalemate in a position that you don't want to, essentially? But BBOV have lost Knight. We talked about their aggression, and this area is very, very tricky and heavily rewards those who know how to tactically split around the landscape.
And of course, Shoots to Survive, they don't really want to take this fight initially. You do see that the zone did go hard towards the southwestern side. So these players are more interested in that position. I think that is the smartest way to play about it because, yes, you can get a plethora of kills in around the La Bendita crater, but it is very difficult to rotate away on because you don't really have that vision of the next hill over the top of you, and you can still get caught out by teams who make that quicker rotation, who try to gatekeep that exact location. Excuse me as well, are also going to be up in this fight, facing inside this phase 3 zone, however, up against Uncles. And for Uncles, this has been a very surprising, but actually, I think, unfortunate series of 2 games they've played so far, and not at all to the way I think the Uncles playstyle really comes out in the best way to show Uncles as a team, because they are a very aggressive squad, but they played it a lot more passively today. I'm not sure if that's the right decision. I mean, yes, you can play for positions, but when a game like this, continuous hard shifts, we go a game back to Los Leones, it's going to be very difficult to rotate in, particularly from that western side. I mean, we've already explained it yesterday how hard it is to be able to get up the tiers of those ridge lines and be able to effectively find an entrance inside the city from there.
You know what? It's actually extremely lucky for the teams in Los Leones. Not because the circle goes to them, is that they don't need to worry about the fact that they haven't gotten themselves vehicles. Like some of them, I know in these hot drops, some players just forgot about vehicles completely until they need to rotate away. With this type of finish, they don't really need to get punished for that. And TC Legends will actually get the beautiful Euphoria down to himself, not afraid to strike. So the side of S2S will need to really trade this one, but the team is a little bit slow on that. I think it would be just scout upon scout, still 400
they blew
meters or
themselves
so.
up.
And it's also B4V, like with their holding. That's the important time as well, like to do some team shooting. That's why you can wrap things up quick, right? So I'm going to let them go when it comes to that, because it's really a point carry over from what Conqueror did. And yes, they got into the zone after all, Conqueror, but they're so far from the zone from the northern side. They maybe burned half of their meds just to try to get into that zone. Now they've got a huge rotation to make many of these teams. So I don't know. It's still an open book for these teams.
I definitely feel that Euphoria standing strong, yes, got helped a lot by B4V, but excuse me, another attempt up towards these hills. And when we look back to yesterday, this was something, excuse me, really struggled to be able to effectively decipher that how they were actually going to be able to climb up here and find their way into Los Leones. They actually lost 2 of their players coming up here initially in yesterday's round, and unfortunately for Raid, they are not able to support their fallen comrade. Joker will also fall. Insane going to be pushed back, so albeit here, excuse me, they do find a Nox. Yes, they only have 1 kill through. They couldn't really find the extra one. They did just fall. But excuse me, they have more of a position inside the zone, and they don't need to move just now and fight for more position because they are already safe. I think that for here, it's about laying it back a little bit and being more patient, allowing these teams inside Los Leones to fight it out first, or see if the zone goes back towards you, because you do not want to walk into what is still half the teams inside the city.
Yep. I think I was extremely harsh on, excuse me, that game before, but, you know, they had a very decent split right here. A 2-2 split, 2 to make sure they catch some of the info from outside the zone, 2 who could use that relative high ground, I should say, not just rich, right, to keep info towards the center. So that is just very textbook, and they've done that well. And something that we should talk about, though, would be Born for Victory to have a taste of their own medicine. And that's not, like, a full squad wipe from the car explosion with the points going over to TRG direction. And we're talking about how you feel, you know, after killing someone. One of the best feelings is to take down a vehicle and you just get those juicy points in that split second. So TRG direction can really capitalize off this. Hopefully they didn't go overboard, because they actually don't have room to feel complacent at all. But I hope that would do something good for this team and their spirit, as well as adding a lot of spice to this lobby. And then, you know what? I love this. Do you know why? Because I'm terrible. I'm terrible because I talked about cars.
Yes.
I talked about cars. The South Avoid, alongside many other teams, were dropping close to each other in Los Leones. And for the Solar keep going to them, they may not have the cars, but this type of circle may require them to use the vehicles from, like, for some rotations. Although it could be short distance, you want to cross some roads as quick as possible.
But not in a way that, of course, Born for Victory did, right? I mean, also questioning now how actually TRG were able to strike.
Well, honestly, don't know. I need to find out how they can properly do that like better. In the side of Avoid, though, we talked about them like starting this game in here, and they need more than one way. To play this game. Like, so far, they've been playing some catching up style, I'd say, have not been extremely, like, dominating and proactive in certain positions. And right now, it's also the case. Yes, they are on edge. Yes, they have a spot, but it's so likely that they need to move through the city now that they're from that southeastern edge, and the planning starts exactly now.
And now the zone has moved further in. The question really comes down to can defend their position, but more importantly, can actually Alternative defend their beautiful 3-1 split here? Yes, you have Connect on their own, but I love that these three members 2-1 split on the northern side of the road, because unfortunately, while KLR are falling down to TRD direction, they can defend effectively that road side coming into the zone, which is a core entrance for a lot of these teams, as we said, playing in from more the eastern side as TRG direction will find one, will find two. Snakes inside the room as Ripper will be nullified. It is pest control here. TRG direction do take down up to 7 kills. Now are going to be struck by the opposite side of the road as Uncle's El Chapo does find one, will find a confirm as Barash not even going to be allowed back indoors. As the car will be blowing up, and Uncle's equally themselves up to 2, but they need to continue to move in. They are in the center of so many of those players.
Ooh, TRG actually learned once again some lessons, right? Going into a building, you need to assume someone's there for the city to finish. You need more than one to clear the building. And if you play loud, every small alley could be the reason for your death. So like that one allowed the Uncles to capitalize off that. But TRG does have those 7 kills though, and they still are on somewhat an edge position. So when we talk about those trigger discipline, like when to play loud or whatnot, this is completely different. Everyone would get every kill that they can, like in most cases, and just assume that everyone knows that you are there. So almost TDM situation, but you know what? It's going to be very, very dynamic because we've got those elevations. We've got this time around a little bit of a ping pong situation. We've got one zone to hard shift towards the northwest, now back to the southeast.
And more importantly, you look towards those 4 stacks as well. Those 4 stacks are where you're really keeping your eyes on in terms of not only the high ground information, of course, but more importantly, the ability to be able to have those buildings in your control, because you do have somewhere to retreat back to in the event that teams start to continue to pressure around you. Excuse me, not so fortunate here. Now the zone does go away from them. You have this issue of, well, you need to get all the way around the zone, or you need to try find that position up along the slope coming into the city itself. I like they go for the vehicles. I think that now is a case of trying to realistically find the edge of this play. They are going to go for survival more than trying to find a complete victory. Makes sense, but we do have still Conqueror behind them, and this 2-1 split from Conqueror, Danoka very crucial in being able to stop this, as they do help find one against them. However, Acosti will, with the help of Dragon, take down one of the Conqueror members on that rotation in. And excuse me, they may have been gifted some victory. The shooter survived. Not so fortunate, will fall down.
It's not easy, though. I think when we talk about those triggers, it's extremely hard to be Danoka in that situation. He also wants to kind of play like loud to push some enemies away so that he can control this part. But when he opened fire, it also draw attention to that side to make it hard for his teammates to rotate in that one vehicle as well. So now actually Exclusive will have the upper hand, will be better in that response, as well as those sprays. Just landing that one. Full team still up, and Conqueror falls.
Conqueror falling, but more importantly, right, as you said, excuse me, we have the players, they have the options to continue to move around the edge of this circle, to continue to try play on the safe side of zone, and pray that this zone continues to shift back towards them, because in that event, maybe we do find that success. But 1802, Shack takes down Costi. So now you need to send more players and commit more to that front side, as also the rest of Raid will fall out of the game completely. 8 teams remaining, 22 players left. Is Wizards. They look the ones, I would argue, here most in control.
Oh, such a strong compound, right? Extremely strong for the circle, and you can still get so much info. Like, just risk-free peek. from TPP, right, perspective. And that is what you can do from that compound. Like, only if you get the circle, though, it's so small on the top right that I don't really know. But then these teams need to start thinking as well. And to be fair, I correct what I just said. They should have thought about and hypothesize what could happen and prepare those plans before that new circle appear. And that is what allows teams to be better than someone else when they are very clear on their plan. They know how to think about it and not just think and to play responsively. They have to be really proactive. Inside of Wizard here, we are waiting for them to play strong. And from a strong compound, they have been holding some strong performance. 6 kills on board with the full squad. This can be great for them.
Now, Wizard, they have to move a little bit further in, though, Tarzan. They have to continue to move inside that zone. Phase 7 did shift against them. 1802 is well on the downside of this circle. It will be up to whether, or 1802 can survive, but 1802, the 1-for-1 trade, yes, comes through. Not quite out of the picture just yet, as Walker will not be the last to fall. However, you do have to feel here that 1802 next to fall with that zone continuing to enter in phase 7. The healing strategy now should be in play for them. Uncles as well still alive. TRG direction, more importantly, still alive than their northern side though. And I want to see how TRG can continue to control this high ground, because this high ground, beautiful position for all of those kills on those teams moving in.
You know what? Like we talked about having the finish in your drop spot. Right, and TRG is really given that position now. Yes, they made some frags, they blew up some cars, they lost some players when they didn't have to. But if you know where you drop so well, theoretically you should have an upper hand. And you can see them using some of this high ground. Seems to be working, but the circle will push them out of that. And right now the Uncles may be in that better position in here. Avoid down to 2 players, I believe, but that is go time, because the Blue Zone is going to be so painful.
And now the Blue Zone won't stop, though, avoiding their tracks. They are hiding for now. The spray, 1 shot, 1 bullet could do it onto Keda, but Insania holding off for the meantime as TRG direction falling through. Also, the Uncles will drop beside them. 1802 also going to fall. They do find a smoothest pace, that player, but Sherrick, they strike first. They had the quicker reflexes. And now Crave are left on their own. Only 2 kills for an 1 grenade in behind. Beautiful execution. Crave assassinates down. Sherrick's down to just 4 as Avoid up to 3 kills in total. But we said Wizard, their strength in this position. Tarzan, 9 kills so far. The only team with the squad left remaining. And this could or should be their game, but I don't want to jinx them, because last time I said that, shoot to survive. Did not get that game.
You know what? Avoid right in that position. I feel like they caught themselves in the maze of Los Leones there. They've got some numbers, at least 3 players. They've got 1 position that they need to get into, but the firepower was a little bit split, and they're now just down to that 1 player. So it would be important for them to go back and look at that, and hopefully you just learn something every game right now. Learn about this big gray building, and maybe they can, be the kings when we have another circle ending there again, but it will actually be them going out. And this time round, it's going to be Wizard. And they've been doing so well as well. And so they fought for the spot, to be fair. Not like Alternative Esports, who landed here. They fought for it, and they are now up to 11 kills in the full squad.
11 kills. Can they close out a game, though? That is a crucial thing to keep an eye on here. Yes, they will top the leaderboard in this game, because Alternative, they only have 2. But this could still clearly be a mega win here for Wizard if they can find those 15 points. Alternative, though, they will want that too. As Alternative, they need to stop this smoke growth happening, but we cannot do just that now. The rest would drag on last inside the building. Boarded inside the shelter of Alternative Esports. As they head back up, retreat to the 2nd floor, to the 3rd floor here. Splash on the back end does not have ideally the position to support, so will come in for the ground angle, but Splash has the information, goes back up the stairs as well. Wizard do not catch them, and Wizard still hanging on the outside of this zone. But where is that zone going to go? Phase 9, we move in. That knock on to Kaneki should clear through the flush. But Wizard, they still don't do just that, Tarzan. They're still holding in. Wizard need to be more aggressive.
But you know what? Like they thought about the possibilities. I think it's great. They take so much damage going up there, and they drop all those first aids. The plan is so clear: 3 to deal damage and 1 to heal. That is textbook right here, and it's actually very possible. It will be down to those really quick CQC in those maneuvers as well. Like that is the typical play for them. And this time round, Alternative Esports don't have the numbers and still trying to revive in here.
But there's one player left. Haven't been keeping an eye on that kill feed. Wizard, they will just continue to hold on. They will choke them out. They will at least grab 1 extra kill. Can they grab a second? Yes, they do. Godmels are taking them as they walk up one by one. Godmels still surviving somehow, some way. But that zone is coming in. You gotta heal, Alternative. You gotta make sure that you don't fall, because Wizard, they are falling down. Now they have to go back to the healing, and I just feel like Wizards, they may have lost their opportunity to completely win this game. Now Godmels has everything, can even make that secondary revive, but does not go for that, continuing to jump back and forth.
But you know what? Like the thinking is there, the execution a little bit hard. Like this time around, Wizard should win this. The heal strat has been established. Like he's done that job, and he's got 10 first aids. This side, Godmel's got 6. Like the only thing that I can fault is for them to really make sure that the 2 players who are on damage duty to do it together. This time around, Godmel's is trying to do it, but he finds one, and that is it. That is beautiful.
Tarzan, my days, Wizard, they weren't able to be stopped right there. Alternative takes down in that second position, but albeit it was a nice attempt, I think had they actually made that revive in that small window they had and then went down, you could easily see a world where Alternative take that game. But small notes aside, they still have second place, which, to be fair, considering the action and all of what was around them, the positioning was what got them there initially, and that's what I really appreciate to see coming from them.
Yeah, it actually allowed me to think a lot how that endgame can be played differently for these teams. You can see the thinking is there, right? Like Wizard knows that they need someone to heal and someone to deal damage, but like there's a little bit of an organized push. Like the synchronization needs to be better. I also think that they could have saved some of the utilities for one phase later, when there's when the enemy team above are more pinched to a particular place and won't be allowed to maybe revive and all that stuff. But sometimes it's just really hard to say. You want to give it a try anyway, so you know what? Let's look at those ranking right here after that Miramar game, because that was actually a very spicy one. It's different playing path, different teams showing up as well, but the same thing to have that ending in the city.
And Wizard, of course, taking 27 points. We said it would be a big game. That it was. It was also the uncles. I think more so the alternative, though, that's really what I'm interested in seeing. And I think even to an extent, TRG, of course, picking up those 7 kills, but they were all able to find a good position in this leaderboard where they hadn't been doing so before. And that is the type of important results that you need to continue to still find these points. However, I still agree to the fact that a team like TRG, yes, they're able to find a really nice game here. They still need to do a lot more if they want to continue to rise. Because yes, they are, as we said, very much on the bottom of that leaderboard. Not so much now, but you also have to believe that there are still 16 other teams playing tomorrow that can just continue to overtake you in a TRG direction, straight back down to the bottom again.
It's tough. I mean, the thing is, they've played better, but you just need like a lot more. But we talked about Team Savage not having the best game like in game 2, and now actually given like they drop swat to them from the playing path, but then actually force them to play in a way that they have not found much success in the previous tournament. And this time round, it seems like they need to be pushed a little bit out of their comfort zone so that they can find a new style. Like this time round, they really, really need to find a new way, right? Because it's not working. I'm so scared that they are losing the advantage.
And I think for really here coming to the advantage, that's what we're really looking for. We're really looking for these teams not only to create an advantage in one game, but again, back to the consistency, back to that journey of teams learning how these other teams are playing and learning how to be adaptive, how to evolve to make sure that consistency can come through and you can continue to pick up those points where they are required. Because if you are slumping down, I think also to note their Team Savage slumping down in that match as well will suffer for it. And you can, I think, see that coming through as we'll come back after later on to that overall result. Notice how that has affected them. I think, to be fair though, coming now into the fourth match, it is going to be interesting to see how teams playing off this momentum, like Wizard, like Alternative, who didn't perform well in that first game, can perform again coming back into Erangel, because you want to see that improvement. You want to see that mental state be improved upon, as we will, of course, head through to Erangel just after a short break, so don't go anywhere. We are back once again here on the cast desk for the PMCO UK 2021 full season with myself, Harlan Wolf, and also Professor Tarzan, joined by our beautiful sponsors up above the top there, which is going to be Xiaomi, where you can buy a super fast and lag-free PUBG mobile experience on Xiaomi's powerful Redmi Note 10 5G. Tarzan, we definitely saw a very powerful performance though coming through from Wizard in that last game, picking up that chicken dinner plus 11 kills.
You know, I'm just going to zip up and make sure that I talk this right. It was impressive, but we need more, right? Because they were also one of those teams that had some practice yesterday in Los Leones. Like the Group A teams didn't get that advantage, or should I say practice, I would say. But this time around, like some of these teams had practice, not yesterday, but today. We're going into Erangel. I want to talk about Milta. We had the uncles who ended this past game decently. They lost first in game 1 in Milta. So alongside them could be TRG, who eliminated them in game 1. But TRG also had a decent game just now. Yes, only 1 placement point, but the kills are coming through. And then we also have the side of Avoid. Also very used to how, like, in this several games in a row, kind of just dropping alongside some other teams with some early action. I wonder how Milta's going to look like.
I mean, Milta probably going to be contested. You've got to imagine. Then it comes down to, well, how can TRG, how can Uncles, how can also Avoid really play? As we do move to those overall standings, we'll see how the leaderboard has played out here as well. And well, yes, it will be Team Savage on the top, despite what was a little bit of a slip in the results in that last match, gaining albeit only 1 or 0 points, I believe. And excuse me, climbing with that up to second position. Wizard up to third with their big game as well, 1802, standing strong, up to fourth now. And yes, we can, of course, know that, well, 777 isn't playing today, so they actually have done well, albeit to stay in 6th position. And of course, those who were initially on that front page also slipped down. We still got to see another 2 groups tomorrow to see an overall true result after 8 games of the standings of these 32 teams. It still is impressive to see 7 of these 8 teams being from today's games.
Yeah, but after all, the point per game average has gone down so much, like for Team Savage. It's from 16 is where they started today, now is around 12 point something, and that is no good. If they didn't get enough points like this time around, then the side 777 Esports only need 20-ish points like tomorrow to take that top spot away. So we have a little bit of that, balancing, out type of situation here, like today. So want to see how they can make this count. Like for a team like Knowledgeable 12, they had some very interesting engagement early on, but you can see the placement points are really lacking.
Yeah, placement points really lacking, I think, for some of these teams when it comes to their more aggressive style of play. But again, aggression doesn't get you everything. As you can see, that's why they are slightly further down on this leaderboard in total. Is also, when you look towards the bottom of the leaderboard, TRG direction, yes, finding his way up, there's still another big chunk of work to do on top there. KLR, I think, really, unfortunately, disappointing is a word you could say here after 7 games. We're only here a total of 20 points and also 17 points, respectively.
You know what? It's still somewhat early. I know it's weird to say that because we always talk about how they look like they're very low on the leaderboards,
yes.
But like the so-called difference, like in the bottom half of the teams, like can be like made up just from one huge game, right?
Yeah, I think for sure it also can be made up. A beautiful phone there on your screen, Xiaomi, where you can, of course, get a super fast and lag-free PUBG mobile experience on Xiaomi's powerful Redmi Note 10 5G. As we head through to our final match here, Tarzan, I think that honestly, with this northern plane path, we get to see something slightly different here. Yes, we're not going to see the South Island. I don't think we obviously see a lot of teams here in PMCO this time around favor that, unlike in Spring Split. However, I love to see now how teams play around Georgeport, how teams play around more Roshok and yes, and Polyana, where we haven't seen players really focus on that so much.
Yeah, and you know what? Because this plane path is quite similar to what we've had on day one, match one, that was from mansion to hospital. So this time around, to go slightly more northern, it still allows these teams to have a great, like a easy prediction onto where they can see each other, right? So that is going to be a bit of a different one this time around. Though Avoid can't seem to, find their plan. Like, yes, I know this is where they dropped, like in on the first day on that side. Team Savage was very close, and I wonder whether both of these teams know that could be the case. And I think it will be a great change up this time around, because like with the pure talent and aggression that we've expect from Avoid, if they can kill someone, and if that someone is from Team Savage, I think it's a great confidence and momentum swing, right? And we will maybe send Team Savage like lower down that slump as well, as that is just early game slack when it comes to preparation. You can't have a split without knowing which side you're looking at with the I button to go into a compound and just lose your life. Like
Yeah.
they're so hard to plan phase one. There's so much like map, like consideration to come through, so much when to jump. Like even if you're going for the same compound, you may want to jump early, you may want to jump late, you want to do dive distance to arrive as soon as possible, all depending on where your teammates are jumping and looking at.
I think for sure Team Savage, they really need to be stepping up here. It does not feel like the Savage that we knew coming into day one. The Savage is literally at the top of the leaderboard.
You know what? Like we've got those concerns. Like even in the past tournament, I was so worried that they would come into the tournament to have those good games to start off with. That doesn't really put them to the test. They somewhat survived that, to be fair, more than that. But today they are hit with a different type of game, right? Need to make some bigger rotations early on, or just get dropped on when they somehow should have expected it, because Avoid dropped around that location, and they are going back to being punished for something that is basically textbook. So they need to withstand this, because to not end today with a decent, like with some decent rhythm, I would say, will not allow them to keep with the pace. Yes, they should qualify on paper. They're still on in the first seat, but you need a lot more. You don't just want to qualify, you want to dominate and be able to challenge that top spot.
Yeah, I think one more game coming through from Team Savage is successful for them. You can see them for sure getting inside that top 14, joining, of course, Rescue and Gaijin Seraphim in those finals later next week. But it is now this week where we actually look towards some of those teams who aren't on top in that top 14, and well, Raid can send another one of those hopefuls down into the relegation zone where K12 do stand currently, and K12 needs to continue to actually show us what has been some promising performance, I think, through from the second day of games. Yes, good. They are doing well so far.
And I think it's interesting to see this as well, because we've seen some skirmishes around here, like at least between TSC Legends and then the side of Raid, if my memory serves me correctly, from game one. So this time around to contest this compound is quite interesting. Like it's almost like they want to do this. I want to believe that it's a really informed decision, that they would come in and say, you know what, like this is the team that I want to take some points off. And it's not easy using a lot of early utilities at the same time.
Yeah, I think overall they've really got to look here now. How can K12 ideally continue to find avenues into this fight? Well, they do have that 2-2 split. K12, you got to tick off to the backside with Beast. If they can try to find one of these flanky members down from Raid as they continue to move about, then that could be the case. I mean, Scorpio really does look like that player. Beast can find that beautiful flush through. But when you look towards where the positioning of Raid are, and actually Insane covering Scorpio, and then this is a good positioning coming through from Raid to deny that, in the sense that Raid, it's like a game of chess where we do cover each player piece for piece.
Yeah, I do think that both teams got the right ideas when it comes to sending someone outside to have a bit of an off angle. The only problem would be that this off angle can be completely destroyed by a scouting team that comes around. They're still early, and if we have that situation here, it would be so sad. So the Son of Beast, not only does he need to look at the compound where he wants to catch some players from Team Raid off guard, he also needs to check what's behind him from time to time. Like, because this cover, he would know how silly he looks if someone starts opening fire from behind him.
Yeah, I think that Beast moving indoors does make sense to that scenario where they don't look behind them, they do get caught. Beast as well closing up, but it is about that stalemate, it is about that information. However, with being so stale for so long, it does put them behind, of course, the rest of these teams in this game, because you do spend so long fighting. But even if you come out on top, you have to come out really with 3-4 players, because if you come out with 1 or 2, you haven't got the information inside the zone. You don't really have as much loot as everyone else coming into what could be a prolonged game once more, like we saw last time on Erangel. You really start to suffer, and you end up in a situation, well, like other teams were, where you get to those phase 5, phase 6 points, but you don't have enough power in your members because you just don't have enough members to be able to get inside those final zones.
Oh, exactly. And I think there's some changes that we are seeing here that is extremely weird in a way. For example, to have, excuse me, getting dropped on by KLR. KLR doesn't really have many points, and they don't want to lose some points here. Like, it's almost like they are playing this like their last game, so they're trying to disrupt the lobby or try something, but they don't look like they know how to play pachinki. Like, it's really tricky. It's quite harsh to say that, but like, you don't want to go against one of the top teams when you still got enough games to come back strong. But we also looked at that kill feed earlier as well, like from Raid. They actually not one player from shoot to what's the name again? My God, Shoot to Survive is the name.
Yeah,
S2S.
Yeah.
So they rotate it around there, and then that's just really a change of that dynamic. So suddenly it can become a 3-way fight. As you can see, the kill feed's really popping off. I hope we can catch some of those action.
I really hope so. Of course, Shoot to Survive, and I'm one of those teams who I think show promise, but just can't quite again find the positioning and find those positions in the late game to really close out what have been quite aggressive games coming through from them. Is Raid as well. Do strike down onto K12, but no knock so far. So we're still returning back. Or should I say, actually, there was a knock onto Raze, so it will be the revive. So again, it still comes back to the stalemate, albeit here inside these two compounds. And I think for K12, you now look to the point back of if you can find one knock onto a player, if you can confirm one kill, you still can't potentially find even more. Do you then just decide, well, we've got the kill, we should now move back and we should reposition later on?
It's really hard to ask this question or get the answer, to be fair. Like, I don't even know what to ask at this point, because like they don't really have the vehicles. Like, we want to look at the amount of resource that they have, because the thing here is you want to untangle the situation so that you can help yourself towards the later game. Yes, they're kind of in the middle, but whoever is going to crash into that area will punish both teams, because they're so underlooted. They didn't have time to grab vehicles, and they would just choke each other to death in that situation. Like, here we come, many teams coming into this circle to potentially challenge that position. But it's so interesting to see how certain rotation options are still there, because we have a good chunk of Southern Island still in play, but seems like most teams have found their way in. So we will have, most teams on that main island there, with some of those grounds that we've seen in game 1 now to be repeated.
Yeah, I really worry here, especially for K12 opening fire on the likes of 1802. Fortunately, of course, 1802 don't know they've been there for the last entirety of the game, so they won't just decide to dive on in there. Also aware potentially of the fact that there could be still even more on the backside. Of course, Rage still there as well. Wizard, though, do head first to what was a really strong compound here potentially in game number 1, already looking to take it up, because, of course, this zone 2 has actually gone again towards where it was the last time around. We saw a very similar phase 1 on top as well. So we do then look back to, well, what did play out in that first game? And it was those teams who went down towards the south side who had those advantages coming into the zones.
You can see some decent thinking coming through as well. Alternative esports, like coming in to smoke up and pick up a teammate that seems to be like stuck somewhere, but the entry path and the escape path for in relation to where the smoke was established was actually great. So they got out of there against a very aggressive team. Like, not only did Wizard get some kills and the chicken dinner the game before, they started this tournament with a lot of kills on this map, right? So this is important to not give them that momentum in here. But this is just extremely weird to me at this point. Like, KLR, I'm not sure whether they have really done establish anything, but the most that they've done for sure is to slow down excuse me pacing.
Excuse me for sure. Another one of these teams around Pachinki, Tarzan, it again when it looks towards the stalemate position. Well, yes, you're up against KLR. Yes, they are a lower team, but you still cannot count them out. I mean, when it does look too costly, they do find a game welcome. That is going to be potentially a second. No, it will be retreat back. So excuse me, Prada. We'll also get knocked down though. A beautiful shot from Miran, but lands straight into the fire pit. There was given over. So excuse me, maybe we can turn this one back.
Nice.
KLR goal jumping back in is Miran will be confirmed through. Walker does find the beautiful support, and now Ibra and Arvin are left to their lonesomes. But on the back end of the fight, Ibra does move in, is trying to make those rotations happen, but a kill is already confirmed through by that third party support from Excuse Me, and Ibra has to retreat.
And that is great by Excuse Me. Yes, it's been slow, but they only made the move when they have the formation to basically refrag and trade, and that is the difference there. When the side of KLR got a knock, they're so like eager to get that thirst that he didn't notice that he can get caught off guard there. That is the difference in the level of play right there. And now we've got Silly probably getting another one, but that will be the wall to protect so far.
Wall to protect, but could potentially find another if Ibra does decide to move. But a wall, as we said, does keep him sane for now. Ibra will now be looking to be flushed by those members of Excuse Me. The smoke has come through, blinding both teams, however. So we do take it slightly slower. Silly not in the mood to be called out as a solo player. Does find that respect, and especially considering Ammon is on the backside. Silly making a lot of movement though. The sound cues could be here through that smoke. The ear is going to be very, very vital here of Ibra. Does shoot down one, but cannot find a kill, nor a knock, and it will be confirmed through. Only one remaining for Avin. And it's a very clean fight overall here from Excuse Me in the way that they are handling this.
But you know what? The question to ask now is, have they got the vehicles? Like, just through this really slowed down phase 1 is now actually phase 3. They got so far to travel. They spent some resources, and then they may not have the vehicles. And look at that zone. They will get punished so hard if they try to do what they were more used to just like challenge some power positions. They did not have the loot. They did not have the vehicles to do that. They didn't have the pacing to do that. And now, still, oh, my brain is hurting a little bit. Yes, I get it. You don't want to have any misstep, but at this point, like, you're not really establishing or achieving anything. And finally, with some not coming through, this needs to be wrapped up very, very soon.
This needs to be wrapped up right now and here, Tarzan, K12 and Raid. There are like 2 buildings of loot. This is all they've got the entire game. The zone now engulfing them all in phase 3. No way do they have the healing capable of even tanking this phase 3 zone, based on the fact that they have been here the last literal 14 minutes of this game. And K12, now with that knocked member, how much can it really continue to survive? Well, they do survive at least one squad, because TRG will fall through first, but has the TSC Legends. As Raid, they do aggressively look to try come up further to take those kills, but again, Raid backing off. And in this situation, you wonder why both teams are still here, because they are so passive, which is surprising. Considering that both teams, they played very aggressive.
They did not set a timeline for this at all.
Yeah.
Like, I would say, let's do a bit of a different type of math here, shall we? Like, if they just killed one team, killed the other right at this moment, like this exact second, I think the other may still die, like, or at least lose some players. And Raid is just so lucky there, or maybe they've done some like homework to go back and say, hey, look, there's a car. I really wish that they know that it's there, and they said that will probably give us some, leeway when it comes to time. But I wouldn't even be surprised based on how they played like all that time to say that, hey, you know what, we just accidentally found that car, because the planning was not really there. It's just so weird. But this one, though, this is the spiciest thing that I've seen when it comes to zone.
That is spicy.
That is very open on the coastline, 70% water with still some ways.
Both sides.
But you know what's so interesting? The bridge is also in Island Wolf.
Yes, but both sides also are in play. That is what is so scary. But every team going to be jumping down on Ferry Pier. Ferry Pier, you're looking more towards the hillside where 1802 currently stand. That's the real strongest position of this zone. The rest is more towards beachfronts, towards low side hills. And actually now Shoot to Survive also going to continue to move through with Erangel 2.0 hills as they look for that position inside the zone. But the road gatekeeping them away. Conqueror try to make that push, but rightly so. You see why you can't make that push, because 1802 punished them clearly, and as soon as they enter that compound.
And I think 1802 is just a very decent squad. Like, there's so many things that they could have get punished for, but there's so many things that teams somehow struggle to deliver that they do decently. Right, so 1802 would need to continue holding the spot. That the tricky thing would be to transition this into something else, and not to be so tunneled. This position is so strong that they can farm more than one team. And I actually am waiting for some of these teams to get onto those small islands in the middle of the sea. Like, that is actually like underused, not just because people don't want them, but we just rarely get an ending around there. But this game is so special so far, Wolf, because there's so many teams that really literally died because of themselves and not because of someone else. It's the pacing, is the macro decisions, and all those timing that is so off.
Yeah, I definitely think that the pacing and the rotations, as you say, needs a little bit of work when it comes to Group A and C here. And I think I'm more disappointed in Group C, considering how we praised them, rightly so, in yesterday's games, and how well we know that they can play as winners as well. They are going to be caught off by such a difficult zone. They look for that rotation, but where do you go? There is nowhere to go because it's all so open. I think I would not be surprised to see, and I'm surprised that we haven't seen already, fishies start to form inside of this water.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm also looking at the bridge because I think it will be extremely OP. Like, it will provide you with that option. You can still stay in the car. You can farm from really far. You can play full spoiler until you need to bring the car in to still play that, to do that fishing, that fishy strategy. But the coastline will be in high contest, and that's going to be Shoot to Survive down to 3 players. And now the reinforcement comes in, but Uncles is there to make sure this ain't going to be easy.
Still Uncle. They look to try take down Shoot to Survive or free them in amongst the edge of that waterline. One will fall. Uncle No Mercy does find Chief big and will confirm them through without a smile. Is now Shoot to Survive the zone, smiling upon all of them, though. However, as phase 4 does come to an end, where will it go, Tars? And it goes away. Eventually, somewhere else. It's a little bit of time. There it goes. There we are. It goes away from them. I was expecting so up towards the coastline of Ferry.
You know what? Like, I was thinking that we may get a full water circle, but I think that would be too crazy. But there will be no mercy here, with absolutely no mercy. The start of Shoot to Survive needs to survive, and they actually did exactly what they had to before El Chapo comes to finish the job.
Uncle is clearing up the fights and now continuing to move in, but as we say, where do you go? I think now, especially that point of contention where 1802 are, that is again the strongest point still in this zone, because now that those mountains have been moved away, you look, I think, also towards the fact of teams, if you cannot take that position of 1802, actually rotating through to that South Island. It's a very small little one coming off of the Ara Ferry Pier. Actually, on the back side of that, closing towards the south of the zone, that's probably another desirable spot here that teams, particularly, of course, Alternative, are going to look for, is unfortunately here for Born for Victory. Also going to suffer as, again, Team Savage, suffering to the hands of Sherix.
Well, they've got one fishy already ready in the water, though. Like, that's going to change something. But getting to the island is tricky when it comes to the route to get there. Like, unless you've made that bet in the earlier zone, I think some of these players would keep an eye on there, but it's also slowly getting some love, as we can see the rotation getting on there. It can get extremely interesting. Born for Victory, we praise them for the aggression. They need to continue doing that. Cray almost lost his life, but that will be silenced behind to maybe be that important reinforcement.
And now Avoid to be stepping in. They step with a molly. They wanted to burn Born for Victory. They'll still confirm one. Is into the puff of white smoke. Snowman, head they go. Silence. Winter coming early from the Uzi is now also Hilu entering themselves to prepare for a 1v2. On the backside, we said that South Island, that is where those teams are. Alternative, they strike with the help of that rock to protect them over on that exact position. You look, though, towards where you move next, Tarzan. Where do you go if you are one of these edge teams to actually contest for that win?
It's extremely hard. I think you need to think about how much noise you've been giving away or info that you've been giving away. So, for example, Alternative Esports got a decent line of entry, like to continue through that island first. But the fact that they don't have the trigger discipline to like fire when they got into the other part of that coastal line would mean that they can like suffer from that. As you can see, Mini getting almost not from that position, and that is no, he got exactly
He's
not,
dead.
and now in water. How many times do we have to say this, guys? Just think about the consequence of shooting from where you are at that particular time. And now that they've done that, the circle will go away from them, and the gods of PUBG, not just them. Like, I think the side of Alternative Esports have made sure that they will die from this game by opening fire there.
I agree there. There is only that one small entrance in. It is the bottleneck of anything inside this zone here, of any position at all. Born for Victory, though, they still need to continue to move. Yes, they took down another and up to 3 kills, but they make that revive happen. And now, where do you go? Phase 6 already on the next dip across. You wait, yes, of course, for Avoid to be tanking that Phase 6 zone, but they won't even have to because it's a clean kill through. With the help of Alternative, they clean through Avoid. Silence will fall last. And now, Avoid making that move in towards the south side, but we're heading to the beach. We're heading to Summer Party on the south side of Erangel, and everyone needs to get there, but unfortunately only one team's invited to take that win.
You know what? The 1802 has such a strong compound. Like, you can just use those, and if you don't allow someone to come too close, you can use just the balconies, right? And they can be so strong. But Dragon applying that pressure, TSC Legends down to 2 players will need to have some really good nade skills to get out of the situation.
I think that Wizard, actually, their positioning here, albeit the fact they haven't even had a compound, they still have that strength. Although I say that, they're getting pulled back down. TSC Legends, you said it was tricky. They just take 2 straight away. The Cast Curse strikes once again. Euphoria stepping up when it counts, but with the help there of 1802 onto Born for Victory, flushing through the flank side as well on the western part of this zone. Saint as well, getting caught by TSC, but it's still the threat in front of them. Dicker as well, also available.
And that's the problem when you don't delegate your tasks. Like Wizard actually, for not just because of TSC, they're so tunneled on TSC that the uncles dealt so much damage to them from that coastal line. And that is the issue when you don't have these like really high clarity in those positions. You just need them, the IGLs to deliver and people to ask the right questions. But Jar Jar will go down to Dragon, and that may still be a win going over to Wizard, but I want to say that I'm speaking too soon.
Dragon is still going to have to move further into this zone, is on the edge, and phase 6 next to shift to 7. Jar Jar will be confirmed. Euphoria tries to strike back, but Dragon steps up. The smoke cloud will protect Euphoria, but not for much longer. Dicker does take them down. TSC Legends into 6th position. 4 kills so far for Wizard. Alternative, for all the points that you criticized them for in their trigger discipline, they're somehow still alive, and they have watched the rest in front be cleaned up, and now they look to clean up the solo team Savage. If they do so, this could be an entrance into some success, potentially a top 3 spot for them.
I think it also comes down to 1802 being so busy, like looking at all those players coming from that coastal line, right? So that will be at least alternative esports making it count this time and slowly getting in. It's not going to be easy. You can see the small maneuvers there, being very aware of what's around, but will still actually look all you want. But the third person peak will be so strong, and then we will have 1802 try to take the 8th kill with the full squad right here. It's been a great game. That compound that they've picked was one of the best decisions they could have ever made.
In 1802, now we continue that push. Yes, the zone hasn't been gifted to them recently, but I love that they're still continuing to find that split through. They're still continuing to use the strength of numbers to find the success in these kills. They grabbed themselves another 2 just now, and this is what is so beautiful. Ripro is going for the fishy strategy and does have the vehicle to open fire. So alternative, unaware of the situation, could be punished here if Rupert does open fire, but again, will only look to wait. It's now we find themselves inside the top 3. Rupo may just decide to enter up, tries to find Splash, maybe does find that successful knock. They are so low. Mel, Splash, both down behind 50% HP. The smoke now going to block the vision, and with that advantage, 1802 strike all the way to the opposite end of the map.
It's important that they make this split. They need to apply pressure from everywhere. The side of alternative esports, not only are they smoking themselves, that is just giving away certain position as well, and that will be just the very attractive sign for people to nade in. 1802 may just take this one. That may also mean that it will be the actually Team Savage goes out, and this last kill should not go into anyone's pocket. 1802 want to take everyone.
They want it, they're going for it, Mels. He gotta swim, he's going, and he takes himself with a play zone. It will be there, 1802, not going to take that last kill of the game, but still going to be 24 points overall for him. And Tarzan 1802 today have really impressed us.
They are just good. they are just... sometimes you've been given a circle, you hold a particular compound, but the execution itself is hard because it requires a different thing of you as the game progresses, right? So that was a great game by them, and overall a very decent day. They came in today as one of the, how shall I say, somewhat at the top. They're not top, but they maybe top 5 or 6. So with today, they can really challenge those top spots, but it's going to be a bit harder. The fact that Team Savage actually had a terrible early game, but made that fishy strategy, was able to take at least 10 kills from placement. That really kept them in there and gave them a huge buffer into that last day for the game, for their group play.
As we do jump into the overall stats from our 4 games today, in the 8 games overall played by Group A and C, 4 for B and D, we end up with Team Savage still on the top, 97 points, 1802, rightly so, in the second position alongside Wizard, also stepping up. Again, though they actually only realistically granted 20 points today, because you look back to yesterday, they had about 60 as well. It's 24-7. Also a good result. Do keep themselves inside that first page. But I'm actually very impressed by how the Uncles and Alternative recently have still managed to grant themselves up inside this first page, because I did not expect this, considering particularly Alternative, where would it start? Rightly so. I mean, they were close, or if not in that third page of rankings.
Yeah, and it's very tricky. I think the way that they played are still extremely punishable. Yes, sometimes you get those placement poison here and there, but you can see just based on the stats, the aggression is not on par with the rest of page 1, right? So that is something to really fix. And there's something that would be on the other side right now, would be avoid. They definitely have the gun skill. Certain skirmish fight, they're not scared to take those. But this time around, to sit at 15th position after playing 8 games, that is not a great sign. But they have 29 kills on board, and that is, that means something. They just need to pick certain fights at a different position at a different time.
Yeah, I think overall, clearly now it turns into how these teams can turn their consistency, albeit in their games, into also aggressiveness and be able to get those kills. Because had they actually got another 20 or so kill points, you see them right at the top of that leaderboard as we do jump through down to the lower end of the leaderboard. Unfortunately, do start to see teams who need to still show something, really something, coming into the final 4 games. Unfortunately, Knowledgeable 12 in amongst those in Group B and D will only see them, you got to imagine, drop down to the last set of results as we do move through to those. And I think the Knowledgeable 12, I think very obvious mistakes coming through from them. You want to see improved, and especially looking back at the VOD and seeing where it went wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the homework never stops, and I think that is the art of competitive PUBG. And no one, like everyone, would need to stop thinking that they are good. Like from mechanics, like that itself can only get you to tier 2. I always say that. Like people say me montage and this and that. I don't care about your bloody spray. Show me your full unedited VOD, right? Show me your comms and all that stuff. Show me how you communicate with your teammates outside of the game. Then I can tell you how good you can be. All those things for teammates and all these teams and players to think about. And you know what? I believe those who can find some, grasp in those things, they should be able to dominate the region still.
And here, as we move through to the final point of this leaderboard, it is unfortunate to see, as we said, TRG and Killer are not able to grab themselves a good position in that final game. I think do we call it at this point? I don't think so. It might be too late. I think that if they show something spectacular, TRG, KLR, it's not over. There is only a 40-point gap between them and qualification, which is clearly possible in 1-2 games, a day of play, to be able to make that up. But I am very extremely concerned that based on what we've seen so far, they don't have that potential to do just that.
Yeah, and I mean, stats can only bring us so far, but of course they allow us to project certain things and also make some estimation, like predictions and all that. So like I always like to say that we like to be wrong. Because like if people can be wrong, which means they've broken a particular trend or they have, beaten themselves, not beating themselves up, but they have surpassed themselves to make some change. And if First off, you need quite a lot of courage and to make certain change if it requires a certain change of style and all that stuff. But to show it in the results, like that's hard. And yes, it's not always just a point. Sometimes we look at how a particular skirmish go, how does a certain movement move as well. Like we can almost feel what's going through the energy of the squad, and that's actually one of the most amazing thing when we're watching this game.
Of course, that is, though, 4 amazing games that we have had so far. Currently, a little bit of inting and also good plays. So all around by our 16 teams today, we will see you the same time, same place tomorrow for Groups B and D. Do not go anywhere.